Okay.
I'll do that. I did that.
You
I
did
did
that?
that. I did it.
You did
Look,
that.
we're live. Now, what time is it there, Nick?
It's coming up to 5 o'clock.
Oh, okay. I'm just wondering because you're yawning.
Oh, I always yawn. I'm
Yeah.
just yawny. I'm a yawny kind of
Just
guy.
yawning for just a yawn.
It's the end of a long day. After a long
Is
day's
it?
work.
Have you done
Okay.
your speech yet at the? Weren't you going to be doing a speech soon at somewhere?
I was supposed to be doing a talk up at Manchester, TAS, the Aviation Society Manchester, but they double booked their venue. And they said, oh, can we delay your talk until next year now? Which is fine by me.
Sure.
Yep. But I'd almost finished the PowerPoint, so I only had to write a few words to jog my memory. So I was, but it's given me a lot more free time now, which is great.
So how often are you bowling in the evenings now?
2 or 3 times a week. So
oh wow, okay.
Yeah, that's working well.
Wow.
And I've got a couple of a morning match and afternoon match in a couple of days, but not every week. So that's good.
Good.
Let me. Oh, okay. Very nice. So let's see if I can do this.
So they sent me a whole bunch of sunflowers, which is very nice.
No.
Who sent you those?
I don't know. I haven't even read the card yet. I guess it's in
Oh.
there somewhere. Just wanted to get these out and in. Okay, Pops.
I hear you. Let me see. Share.
Oh, my niece Rosalind.
Oh, she's sweet.
Oh, nice.
Window. Boom. Share. Okay. Oh, look at that.
Look at that Steffi girl.
Yeah.
Where was that, Nick? Where were
I was
you?
at the Deer's Hut.
Oh, at the Deer's Hut, yeah. Nice.
Your favorite haunt.
Well, it's one of the few pubs that's open on a Monday.
Ah.
Most closed on a Monday because, they have big, busy weekends, so they don't serve food
Right.
on a Monday.
So, Jeff, are we?
Yeah.
Seeing as you're going to be putting Rick's stuff in, are we planning for like a 3-hour show? Is that the plan?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, or something between 2:45 and 3, whatever.
That's fine.
It doesn't have to go all the way to 3. In fact, maybe a shorter show might be a little bit nicer for me to get everything I need to get done and out the door for my trip.
Gotcha.
That I just picked up. Hey, Owen.
Hi, Owen.
You're the first one here, and
sorry for the change.
Yeah, sorry for the last minute change. I picked up some flying that goes out later today, and I requested that we, if available, if we could get together a little bit earlier today, and that way I don't have to try to do some crazy stuff like a car cast in the parking lot of the employee parking lot.
We would have had that ambience of all the planes flying overhead and everything.
That's true. That would have been the plus side of that. But,
yeah.
I think, as long as, it wasn't so loud.
The negative side would be, just wait a minute for this plane to go over.
Yeah. Okay, now, I think we have like 1 minute
for
me to talk, and then, Anywho, glad that you could make it, Owen. And hopefully we'll have others join us in progress. If not, it is recorded, so they can watch the show after the fact. Let me do a quick test of the sounds, just to make sure they're okay. Oh, by the way, how are mic levels? Do I need to bump mine up or bring it back down?
No, I think you sound good. Can you just speak a minute, Nick?
Yeah. How am I doing? Because I'm speaking for a minute, and I can probably do it for 30 seconds. A
Okay,
minute might be.
that's enough.
Okay.
You are a little quiet compared to Nick, just a little
Okay.
bit. So maybe bump
So
yourself up a little bit.
let me adjust that.
I guess I
if
should look at the
possible.
slides too, maybe.
Let's see. Well, I'm already up to 200% there. Let me go into.
Well, we want 210% out of you.
That's all. I can't even do that. That's it. I can't even do 100%. I can do 50.
You'll have to stick the mic a bit closer, I'm
You
afraid.
do 50 if you're lucky.
Yeah. Well, hang on. Before I start sticking the mic places, let me like the. Never mind. I'm not going to say that. I'm going to go up with this thing. Is a volume increasing at all? How about now?
Little bit.
Little bit.
Okay, I'm up to 150.
That's good.
Oh, yeah, no, it has.
That's good.
Okay, test. 1, 2, 3. Now is it too loud?
Little.
Maybe
Okay.
a little bit, yeah.
All right. So, because I don't want to be over modulating. How about that? Is that better?
That sounds
Fine.
good.
That sounds good. Yeah.
That's good. You sure? I don't want to be too loud or too soft.
No, sound good to me, but Michael be the final arbiter if he ever shows up.
Okay. How about Owen? What do you think?
There's Tony. Hey, Tony. Hi.
Hey, Tony. Oh, I was going to ask you, do you hear the room echo reverb?
Nope.
Nope.
Okay, good. Because I have a, in the audio chain here on Audio Hijack, I have the Acon Digital Deverberate in play.
Do you really? That sounds very exciting, having a deverberate.
Yeah, well, no, don't knock it. If you've never been deverberated,
I have not. So, yeah, I
well,
should
just make sure you bring plenty of batteries. I don't know what that means.
I don't know what it means.
There's no batteries here with the deverberate. It's all, well, actually, it's running on my Mac laptop battery.
No, Owen
No
said,
echo, no reverb.
Owen
Okay,
said,
good.
yeah, perfect.
Thanks, Owen. So my level, okay, Owen. Owen, to your expertise. Pretty clever, huh? Thank you, Liz. That's why I love Liz. She laughs at all my stupid jokes and things that I say.
You think she's laughing. She's not really.
Oh, okay.
I'm laughing with you, Jeff, not at
Laughing. All right. We're almost ready to go.
you. Yeah.
Oh, wait. I don't think I ever.
An early departure. Very good.
Yeah. Let's see.
Family show, ladies and gentlemen. Family show.
That all sound okay?
Yep. It could even be a little louder, but
1,000.
Okay. How about that?
yeah, it's okay. It's not very loud.
I'll bring it up 100%.
It's good.
Retard. Retard.
I didn't realize there were two retards in there.
Well, the other one's Jeff.
Yep.
I was looking
There's
at my
at least two
computer screen
retards.
at that moment.
There are always, every show, there are at least two
At
retards.
least. Yeah.
And we're waiting for Nick Camacho to join. Yeah.
Yeah. Man. All right.
In Hartford, Hereford, and Hampshire.
And a place to stand, a place to grow.
Yeah, I've grown all right.
Me too. La, la, la.
What the hell is a
Da-da-da-dum.
Blisk fan? Bloody hell.
A what?
A Blisk fan.
In what context are we talking?
Yeah, what are
Jet
we talking
engine.
about?
A jet engine.
Huh?
He's looking at
Well,
the diagram of
you've
the
put it
engine.
in the show notes.
Oh, I did?
The
Yeah.
diagram of the engine. Which you
Currently proposed for LEAP is a greater use of composite materials, a Blisk fan in the compressor, a
Oh, yeah.
second generation twin annular pre-mixing swirler combustor.
I love annular swirlers. I don't know about you.
They do sound a bit of a worry. I mean, if an engineer came up to me and said your pre-mixing swirler's looking
A
a bit
blisk
dodgy,
is a turbo machine component comprising both rotor disc and blades. It serves as a critical component of the engine compressor to allow a sufficient quantity of compressed air to enter the engine or for combustion to occur.
That's just off the top of her head.
well, it's
Exactly.
not bad.
How much Liz knows.
And it's a portmanteau of bladed disc.
Oh, well, I understand now.
There you go.
Ah.
It's all
Nothing
clear
quite
now.
like a nice
Makes sense.
portmanteau.
Or just a manto.
Yes, I thought man in tow. No, not
That's what
really.
when your car breaks down.
Or that's what I see when I look down at my bare feet.
Oh, you can see
see.
past your tummy. I can't.
Well, if the angle is just right.
Hey,
I
if we,
need a
start,
mirror
if we start
nowadays.
in the next minute or so, we'll be starting right at noon.
Oh, we should do that.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's get the recorder
Ready when
recording.
you are.
And let's hit that little red button.
Button. You got a button. Yeah.
Got the
Yeah,
button.
I
Pu-
record.
push.
We record. They record.
We all record. Hey, Gubby from Abu Dhabi.
Abu Dhabi Gubby.
What have you just joined in on? A mess, a train wreck.
Yeah. Wow.
It's just
And we haven't
horrible.
even started yet.
Yeah. It gets worse from here. Now that Gubby's here. All right.
Ready to roll?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, so what I'm going to do, we don't have Radio Rogers audio
Yeah.
right now. So I'm going to pick up right where I usually say, thank you, Radio Roger. He is an award-winning blah, 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 blah.
Right. And
Okay.
Put it in post. Got it.
Exactly.
Okay.
Um,
It's 12:01 now.
okay. Ah, shoot. Well, pretty darn close.
Yeah.
Right?
Good enough. Good enough.
Okay.
My
And
clock's slow.
okay. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Radio Roger. He's an award-winning TV and radio reporter, currently at the #1 all-news station in the nation. 1010 wins in crap. I wasn't ready.
Okay.
Got to get my sound window in view. Okay. Thank you, Radio Roger. He's an award-winning TV and radio reporter, currently at the #1 all-news station in the nation. 1010 wins in
New York City!
Welcome to the Airline Pilot Guy Show. It's an aviation podcast covering the latest in aviation news and answering your great questions and feedback. Also, joining me today from his studio,
1,000.
In Hartford, Hereford, and Hampshire.
professional photographer, former RAAF fighter pilot, retired Airbus A330, A340 captain for Virgin Atlantic Airways, now a SkyTeam member. It's Captain Nick.
Hi there, Jeff. And in accordance with Virgin Atlantic's new dress code, I have a skirt on.
Oh, I saw that. Oh, I hope that we get to talk about that. Or maybe not.
No.
Also, no, okay. And also joining us from a place to stand and a place to grow. It's retired financier, an aviation enthusiast, spreadsheet master, and our producer, it's Liz Piper from Ontario, Canada.
Good day, everyone.
Specifically, Toronto, Ontario.
That's the place. That's where
Yeah.
I am. Yep.
Oh, so nice to have you with us, Liz. Also, we're expecting Nick Camacho to join us while the show is in progress. And also, we'll be joined virtually, in time delay, from Miami Rick.
Miami Rick's going to be time traveling. Yep.
Yes, he is. All right. And,
Okay,
and
boys.
you and I
Well,
are
if
as well.
he's in a Boeing, he'll be going backwards in time.
Oh, boy.
He'll be
Here it goes.
reversing. Beep, beep, beep.
It already starts.
Bye.
Bye. Skirt. I love it.
Stand by for news.
All right, let's do this item in our news segment. 1A, flying into Hurricane Ian. Now, this is topical. This just happened. I think it's finally been degraded to a tropical storm. It's kind of petering out a bit, but it made 2 separate landfalls here in the U.S., Hurricane Ian. The strongest approach was to the west coast of Florida, and it was a Category 4, a very strong Category 4 as it made landfall, and it just basically destroyed many communities on the west coast of Florida. It looks like Fort Myers Beach or Estero
Fort Myers
Island was like the kind of the most badly affected. But we've heard about the hurricane hunters. The U.S. Air Force Reserve has some C-130s specially outfitted to do hurricane hunting. And the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, also has a couple of airplanes. I'm not sure how many they have, but they're basically, Rick, you said they were like P3?
Like P3 Orions. Yeah, P3
Okay.
Orions. There's the Navy used to use them for anti-submarine warfare before they transitioned fully to the P8 Poseidon. It's a 737 NG platform, but NOAA still uses a P3s, which is a fantastic airplane. Apparently, it's based off of the Lockheed Electra. So you're talking 1950s airframe technology. So, and I know a couple. A good friend of mine went to the Naval Academy with my brother. He was commissioned a naval aviator and went on to fly P3s, and he liked it better than the P8. So he says he flies like a dream.
Well, Lockheed makes a great product. I've flown a couple of them, and
Lucky.
Yeah. So we have this from let's see, what does he call himself, Liz?
Underwood. His last name's Underwood.
Tropical Nick Underwood.
Nick Underwood. Yep.
Yeah, and we have a couple of tweets from him. He's on the crew of one of these. I don't know if they call them hurricane hunters at the NOAA, but he was aboard Kermit, which was number November Oscar Alpha 42. And we have, or he took some video of how, let's see, well, first of all, he tweeted, "When I say that this was the roughest flight of my career so far, I mean it. I've never seen the bunks come out like that. There was coffee everywhere. I have never felt such lateral motion aboard Kermit NOAA 42 this morning into Hurricane Ian. Please stay safe out there." So let me play a little bit of that video. If I can navigate over here to that window. Okay, here we go. I'm going to add it to the stream, and here we go. Lord. Kermit. Getting bounced around. Some nervous laughter, I think. They had to blank out whatever that guy was saying.
We're all right.
So it's the back end of this thing with all the instrumentation and all the meteorologists.
Oh, there goes the signs. There goes the beds.
There goes the
Holy
bed.
cow.
Yeah, there's a lot of side-to-side motion going on. Shifting the camera forward and aft. And, yeah, it's not smooth.
Oh.
Fancy equipment back there. A lot of smiling going on. As I said, Rick, I think that laughter that we hear might be a little nervous.
You got it coming out of this.
Fast forward to see if there's any other good stuff here. Recording. Yeah, it just looks like a lot of bouncing around.
That's Nick.
Wow.
Tropical. Saw a little glimpse of some
Yeah, we're good.
lightning out the window there.
Wow.
You know what? That is something I never, ever want to experience.
No.
It's Jeff and I have weather radar in our aircraft to stay away from stuff like that. It's amazing that these guys, they go towards it, in the name of figuring out what's going on with weather systems. And I just cannot be in more awe of these guys and gals that do this kind of work. It's just unbelievable. And it's also a testament to, as you said earlier, Lockheed. They do build a good product, and it's sad that we don't get to fly Lockheed airliners anymore. 1011 being the last one around, but
yeah.
It's interesting because just a couple of days ago, I mean, I'm nowhere near what these guys and gals went through, but coming back from Germany, we got an ACARS message from the company, and then another one from CPDLC on I believe it was Gander Radio. Sent us a message and a data link, uplink, telling us about severe turbulence possible along our route of flight.
Ooh.
And in my 20 years of flying, I don't think I've ever experienced severe turbulence, because severe turbulence is just basically you can't see the instrument panel and you can't control the aircraft. Just basically what it goes down to. And when you see something like that come up, there's a couple of things that you can do to prepare for that. Obviously, first and foremost, make sure that your lap belt and your shoulder harnesses are nice and tight, and then you have to slow the aircraft down to turbulent penetration speed, which varies from aircraft to aircraft on the 7.6. So you have to slow down to 0.78 Mach, and then you turn on your continuous ignition, because remember that jet engines. The hot portion of the jet engine, it doesn't. Once you have combustion going, the very heat is enough to keep combustion going. But if you're going to be flying through, severe turbulence or any kind of airflow that might disturb or impede the smooth airflow of through the combustion chamber of the engine, it's important. It behooves you to turn the continuous ignition on, and that's basically all that is. It's like turning on the spark plugs. And so you turn those on and you slow the airplane down, and you just basically you're kind of along for the ride there. And thankfully, it wasn't too bad. So I wonder, there's got to be some kind of procedure that these guys go through to brace the aircraft and prepare the aircraft to fly through something as severe as that. And again, just my hats off to these fellas, because the work they do is just unbelievable.
That was my question. Do these planes have any special strengthening or anything that's been applied to them, or are they just as they came off the production line?
Oh no! I'm sure they're structurally strengthened for this kind of work. Also, as I said earlier, anytime you're going to fly through rough air, you have to slow down to turbulence penetration speed, which, as I said, depends. It varies from airplane to airplane. Like I said, the 7.6 was 0.78. On the 747, turbulent penetration speed was 0.85 Mach. So that tells you the kind of this kind of speeds that the 747 flies at. And really all it is that you want to reduce the stresses on the airframe as much as possible, and you do that by same as when you're driving over an unprepared road. You kind of slow your car down because you don't want to be hitting those potholes at 80 miles an hour and doing all kinds of damage to your car. Same deal with airplanes.
And you don't want that darn fire back there in that engine to get blowed out.
No,
you don't.
That
you definitely don't. Nope.
Yep.
So that's interesting. Very, very interesting.
Yeah. And it's not a coincidence in my mind that the airplanes that are used presently, at least in the U.S., for getting close to and inside of and through the walls of hurricanes, some of the most violent weather on Earth, are both made by that company, Lockheed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's not only the airplane, but you also think about the Allison turboshaft engine that's Not sure about the P3, but I know for a fact that the SC-130 has some variation or another of an Allison turbo shaft. And if they don't, I'm sure I'm going to be corrected. And if I'm wrong, please let me know.
No,
but
don't let us know don't let him know because he has very thin skin.
I have very thin skin.
Very upset.
Exactly.
Come back.
All my landings are perfect, and I don't want to hear it otherwise.
Exactly.
But it makes sense that you'd be flying with big turboprops and having you have that big prop up front there because I'd imagine it'd be a little tricky trying to keep a smooth flow of air going through the engine when you have convective activity and turbulence of that magnitude. Trying to keep combustion going would be a little tricky.
Yeah.
I'd imagine.
Definitely more hearty power plants than
absolutely
like regular high bypass jet engines. I don't think they'll be quite as reliable in those conditions.
No.
All right. Yeah. Plus, you wouldn't want to be going a lot faster. You want to be probably going as slow as you can to go through all that crap.
Mm-hmm.
I would imagine. Anyway. Okay. Good. All right. Let me go back to. Here we are live, or at least at this moment, we are live. That was recorded on Saturday evening. Liz and Miami Rick and I were able to get together and cover a couple of items, and we'll get caught up with Miami Rick when we do our Getting to Know Us segment. But anything that you want to add or say, Nick, regarding
only a
what we
couple
just
of
discussed?
comments about the Orion, really. Yeah, he's right. It's Allison turbo props that power the Orion. The Orion was renowned, and I only get this from my reading and a couple of accident reports that I've run through, of having very stiff wings. So I wouldn't have thought it was the ideal airplane necessary to put through the wall of a hurricane, because a lot of that turbulence will be transmitted directly through to the fuselage. Whereas if you look at the average modern airliner, the wings flap up and down like a manic seagull because they're built a lot more with a lot more flex in them, and that's one way to reduce the amount of turbulence that you feel in the around the center of gravity of the aircraft. Whereas if you've got a very rigid wing like the P3, then all that gets transmitted down to the fuselage. Other than that, I was just going to comment on my personal experience. I mean, the airline almost exclusively, you'll find almost every aircraft you fly will be stressed to +2.5, and let me think, -2 or -1. I think it's probably -2 G. And if you go through a lot of turbulence, it's quite easy to build up those G's in the form of big jolts. I've had 30 minutes of solid severe turbulence during a transatlantic crossing. Part of a line check, would you believe? The turbulence was so severe we couldn't actually do anything on the flight deck, like move any switches or press any buttons, because as soon as you tried to move your hand away from the controls, your arms just flapped up and down. You couldn't be sure what you were going to press.
Hit yourself in the head.
Well, you could. You had to brace your hand if you wanted to press a button. We got a reroute, and we literally it took me 10 minutes perhaps to type in the reroute, because my fingers kept moving around the keyboard, hitting the wrong keys as I was trying to, and that was bracing my hands and doing all, and we had to get the guy to read out the reroute several times because you couldn't write it down, because your handwriting was just a scribbly mess on the paper because you kept moving around. But the worst turbulence I've ever had was probably low flying in a military fast jet. The Hawk, because of its low wing loading, was particularly susceptible. And if you're on a windy day flying around the mountains in Scotland, you could hit up updrafts and downdrafts that might, produce 3 or 4G on the G meter as you went through one of those lumps and bumps, and it would be like a huge jolt. It could bang your head on the top of even though you're tightly strapped in, onto the top of the canopy, or could really hurt your spine. Partly because of our high speed, we're trying to do a 420 or 500 knot low-level navigation exercise, and at times you just had to throw it away because it was too dangerous to continue. But that kind of military flying is not the same sort of thing as you get in an airliner.
You mentioned the trying to do things. I don't know if it was a touchscreen control that you were trying to type things into, or
just
what?
a standard McDo with buttons.
Okay.
It was
so
nearly
you had buttons.
impossible.
So I was going to say, I've noticed since we've gone, switched from paper JEPs to EFBs, on typically an iPad, that when you get into turbulent air or bumpy air, even like slightly bumpy air, sometimes it's kind of tough to make sure you're touching the right place on the touch screen. And that's one of those things where I'm kind of happy that I'm flying this old school kind of airplane, because most of our major controls on the jet are still, like the physical switches, and that's kind of nice to have. But
yeah, the early generation of airliners that had built-in computers, they often had a sort of a hand grip with then a thumb wheel or a full directional thumb control that allowed you to hold on tight and then just use your thumb to motor a cursor around, which is not a bad way of going, just in case you're in turbulence. But I think modern generation are going to go towards those touch screens, and you've got to think about what you're going to do if the airplane is really bouncing around. They become almost unusable.
Mm-hmm. True. Okay. Well, let's move on to the second item in our news segment. This is 1B, an NOK. I think it's maybe a NOK or a NOK, not sure. Mini, or is the airline NOK Mini, a Saab 340? I don't think it's a mini Saab. A Saab 340B, registration Hotel Sierra Golf Bravo Golf, performing flight 8610 from Chiang Mai to Udon Thani, Thailand, with 25 passengers and 3 crew, landed on Udon Thani's runway 30 at 8:45 local time, taxied off the runway via taxiways Charlie, and was able to turn right onto taxiway November when, due to hydraulic failure, the nose wheel steering and the brakes failed. The aircraft came to a stop with all wheels off of the taxiway, with the nose gear collapsed. No injuries occurred. The aircraft received substantial damage. The airline initially reported a glitch with an engine, and then they later said, however, that the aircraft had already slowed to taxi speed and was taxiing along the taxiways when the aircraft's hydraulic nose wheel steering malfunctioned. The airport reported that the aircraft had landed normally on runway 30 and had vacated the runway onto taxiway Charlie, but failed to turn right onto taxiway November towards the terminal, came to a stop on soft ground. Anyway, that occurred back in 2013, quite a number of years ago. And I'm not sure if we talked about this or not on our show. That was just too long ago. I hardly remember what happened a couple of weeks ago. But we can tell you that finally, on September 12th of this year, the final report surfaced on an...
Well, did they have to wait for everyone to retire before they...
Maybe. I don't know. That's interesting. So maybe it's been out there for a while, but Simon found it on an unofficial resource of Thailand's Ministry of Transport, concluding that the probable causes of this accident were... both pilots did not follow the abnormal procedures in the aircraft operations manual to solve the hydraulic system malfunction when the single chime came on several times during the flight. Until commencing the holding, the pilots performed the abnormal procedures on hydraulic fluid loss, but not completely and correctly. After landing, the pilot taxied the aircraft from the runway to the apron. During that time, the nose gear Steering and brake systems were inoperative because hydraulic pressure in 2 accumulators decreased until unable to supply to those 2 systems. Subsequently, the pilots were unable to control the direction and stop the aircraft. So there's a lot of narrative here, but basically, when they knew something was, they should have known something was not quite right when they were starting up the engines to begin with. Before they started this whole flight sequence, they had that single chime, and they kind of hinted that there's something not right, but they kind of ignored it and continued with all their checklists and took off. And then in flight, several times during the flight, I think a total of 7 times. I'm trying to recall the exact number, but they got these chimes, and they finally realized that there was something wrong with their hydraulic system. And apparently, they didn't bother to perform the correct checklist item, and not only that, but they kind of stopped in the middle of it and didn't complete the checklist items, and didn't seem too concerned about the fact that there was something wrong with the hydraulic system on this airplane. Nick, did you have a chance to look at this?
Well, I did, and I am looking at it now, and it seems to me that it might have been a transient problem, because they both pilots expressed doubtfulness of the malfunction occurred. Mm-hmm. So, pidgin English, but it sounds like they were getting a warning, but perhaps the hydraulic system was recovering its pressure. So when they looked down at the gauges, they might have been indicating the correct pressure, but so they began to doubt exactly what the problem was, or perhaps I didn't see that after all. It does put a little doubt in your mind. If you get a transient problem and it goes away, do I do the checklist or do I not? Having said that, when it's happened multiple times, eventually you've got to go, right, even if we end up turning this hydraulic system off, it's probably best to get it into a situation where we're not going to have an unexpected failure. So why don't we just do the drill now? But apparently they didn't want to, and then they just continued to ignore it. I've heard of it happening with other aircraft types. There is a classic button on the Airbus, which if you get a continual failure and it becomes annoying, you can do emergency cancel. You lift a guard, and when it comes, that failure happens again, you press the emergency cancel button, and that deletes it. That stops it from reoccurring for the rest of that flight. And I've heard of pilots doing that for what turned out to be a genuine failure. Just because it was happening over and over again, and they were getting annoyed by it, they decided to cancel it and ignore it. Well, you can't do that. You've got to assume that it's real, unless you've got a really solid understanding and proof from another source, perhaps, that there is nothing wrong with the aircraft. So, I don't have a lot of sympathy with these guys, and the fact that it eventually failed. And then they still had that pressure providing nose-wheel steering and braking from their accumulators, and yet they must have had accumulator pressure indicators, I would have thought, or at least perhaps accumulator pressure warnings. Certainly all the Airbuses I flew did. So as they depleted, you must have got an idea that things aren't going right, but apparently not.
Let's see, regarding the cockpit voice recorder data of the accident flight, the single chime came on for 7 times. Also, the conversations between the pilots after each warning mentioned about hydraulic system malfunction. During holding, after the 4th single chime came on, the pilots solved hydraulic system malfunction by following the abnormal procedures in the AOM. Oh, okay. All 7 single chime warnings must be a caution of the hydraulic system. After the co-pilot landed the aircraft, the pilot taxied the aircraft from the runway to taxiway Charlie. At that moment, the co-pilot suggested to the captain twice to use auxiliary system by selecting hand pump first. Then the co-pilot suggested to park and tow the aircraft, but the pilot insisted on waiting. The co-pilot informed the controller about the problem that caused the aircraft to stop at the present position, and the controller acknowledged. During that time, the aircraft stopped for a moment, then moved backwards before coming to a stop, moved forwards again until passing the intersection between Charlie and November. The aircraft veered, and hit a concrete base of some lighting sign, I think. The pilot taxied the aircraft from the runway, which did not comply with the after landing procedure indicated in the abnormal procedures that specified caution, quote, do not taxi into ramp area or crowded areas with a faulty hydraulic pump. And a note, during taxiing with non-functional hydraulic pump, use nose wheel steering and brakes with great care. The functions will be abruptly lost. That's no good.
Oh dear.
Now you'd think
Well,
the
that's
captain
pretty
must
clear.
have been like a really a newbie, a rookie or something, right? Not much experience. Well, you'd be wrong.
Oh right.
30,506 hours total time. Holy
Oh, dear.
moly, that's a lot of time.
Yeah.
He's 64 years old, airline transport pilot license.
Ah, well,
and
perhaps he was on his wind down.
he was already retired.
Yeah, he was just thinking, I've only got to get this through these last few months.
Yeah,
Yes,
that could be it. Yeah, anyway, I thought that was interesting.
it is actually, and very sad. And just shows how easily, you can let things get away from you if you don't follow the drills.
So true. So true. Just a quick pause here. Hello, everybody in the chat. Again, we did start early. Glad to see some familiar names in the live audience, and we're doing this basically to accommodate me because I picked up a last-minute trip that leaves later or signs in later this afternoon, and I asked if it was okay of Liz and Captain Nick if they could start a little bit earlier than we had planned so that we could knock this out and I'll have a chance to get things ready and head to the airport and such. So we beg your indulgence and forgiveness. And let's see. I think the next one is item C. A Beck Air Fokker 100 registration UPF1007 performing flight 2100 from Almaty. I always get this wrong. Almaty to Nur Sultan, Kazakhstan, with 93 passengers and 5 crew. Departed Almaty's runway 5 right at 7:21 local time and lost. And this was back when 2019 December. So, cold. Yeah, we did cover this, Liz. You're correct. It went shortly after it had occurred. But I guess they have some investigation material for us to look at here. Let's see. They lost height shortly after departure, impacted the ground, broke through a concrete wall and fence, and impacted a building. No fire broke out. The aircraft broke into several sections. 66 people were taken to the hospital with particularly extreme critical injuries. 13, including 2 of the initial survivors, were confirmed to have perished. 30 people remained in hospital care. 56 people survived with no or minor injuries. So basically, the crux of this accident has to do with the suspicion that conditions were very, very favorable for icing. And I thought it was quite interesting, Captain Nick, that they mentioned that the crew, and I'm scrolling through here to see if I can find the actual narrative, but basically this particular airline had a habit, or a very bad habit, of not even doing exterior inspections on the aircraft. And so no walk around, basically, performed on this. And I think the captain told the de-icing crew to de-ice the tail and some other part of the aircraft, but not the wings.
Where was he going to get all his lift from then?
Good question. Turns out he didn't get much lift from the wings.
No.
And they did have the investigatory agency produced a video which I think will be good to play here. And I'm not sure. I don't think it had any sound to go with it. Let's find out here. This is okay. Yeah, doesn't sound like any sound. So it's showing the Fokker 100 on its initial takeoff run, and we're seeing some of the flight instrumentation. We're also looking at the computer-generated view of the aircraft behind and to the right, it speeding down the runway. Right now they're at about 120 knots, 130, 140 knots, 100, and right now they're starting their rotation, rotating to about 15 degrees nose high. Okay, now it says stall, so the aircraft's in the stall, hits the tail, hits the left wing. It's still trying to stall. Have they stopped the aborted the takeoff? No, they're still going. The nose now is at 20 degrees nose high, and the speed is still about 140 knots. And it's become airborne a little bit, and now the nose comes up, and then it goes back into a stall again, hits the tail, and then goes off the end of the runway, and then just starts sliding to the right of the extended runway center line. And then here's some actual video we're going to see. There we go, and it's sliding and hits this building, and then the tape stops. Here's some aftermath of the accident. You can see most of the fuselage to the left, and the front part of the fuselage here on this particular. Nope, I guess that's it. There you go. Thank you, Liz. On the slides, that's the front part, the fuselage, the cockpit area, and the first several seats. And you can see why 11 passengers died and the 2 pilots. The captain, I think, died pretty much instantly by hitting this structure. I think the co-pilot actually survived, was in the hospital, and was released. And then at some point, not long after he had been home, he I think he had a heart attack or some kind of an issue, and then died. Wow. What a mess. It's just striking to me that they didn't think that it was an important thing to make sure that the aircraft was clear, completely clean. I don't know if the agency that handles all of the regulations for this airline, if they have the same sort of thing that the ICAO and the FAA have as far as that clean aircraft concept. But obviously the wings were not de-iced. They were not clean. And that's what happens when you don't have lift and you continually attempt to try to make the airplane fly when it's just not going to fly.
Yeah, absolutely, Jeff. Yeah, the presence of snow and ice on the wings can deform the surface. It becomes much rougher, and you need to be going considerably faster to generate the same amount of lift as you do off a clean wing, let alone the additional weight you're carrying, all that kind of stuff. So we all know the dangers, or should know the dangers of trying to fly with ice and snow. Interestingly, very unlikely this would happen on a Western airfield, because your engineer is usually equally, depends on the country you're in, the regulations of course, but is usually equally responsible to ensure that the aircraft is free of snow and ice and fit to fly. And certainly in the UK, and I'm certain in the States as well, they have to go through quite a long, complicated course, so they understand the theory behind trying to fly with control surfaces that might have ice on and wings, etc., and how to de-ice and how to recognize a wing that hasn't been properly de-iced, etc. So we would have expected someone to have piped up on the headset and gone, sorry, Captain, your wings aren't de-iced. Sometimes those responsibilities are actually handed on to the guys doing the de-icing themselves, depending on the standards set by that company. If all the guys in the little de-icing camps have taken the right exams and had the right training, they can take that responsibility. But whatever it is, it's not just down to the crew. So if he'd tried to do that at Heathrow, I'm almost certain that some would have said, I'm sorry, you just can't fly this airplane in this condition. You've got to finish the de-ice and have a complete de-ice. So that wouldn't have happened at one of our airfields, and I'm pretty sure the same in the States.
Yep. As I mentioned before, prior to departure, de-icing was only partially applied. The commander decided to not de-ice the wings. Big problem. There were no aircraft or aircraft system failures. All aircraft systems operated normally. After commencing the takeoff, the aircraft became airborne, began to roll to the right and left, or left and right, actually. The left wing touched the runway. The aircraft sank back onto the runway. The first officer called to reject the takeoff and restarted the thrust levers. I'm not sure what he means by that. Restarted the thrust? Maybe retarded.
Reset or
maybe
or
even pulled back
retarded?
the thrust levers. Yeah. The captain called, "No need," advanced the thrust levers, and continued the takeoff, stating, "Let's go, let's go." Okay. Oh, man.
Damn.
Yeah. That's just sad. I mean, if they had if they had rejected at that point, they probably would have survived. They may have gone maybe a little bit off the end of the runway, but
Yep.
they'd all be alive. You know?
Well, yeah, they'd have probably been past V1 because usually the latest V1 is at the same point as the rotate. So, yeah, he probably too fast to stop, but better to go off the end at 30 knots than 130 knots, which was probably the speed at which they went off the end of the runway.
Yeah.
And there, I see a note here that there is a temporary decrease in both engine N1s, which has not been explained. I'm wondering if that is perhaps an attempt to retard the throttles and then not. Yeah, and you can see how dire the situation is. The aircraft's just dragging its tail along the ground at some points, and it must have been obvious that they're in a dreadful situation. But trying to persist, well, yeah. You know, this always brings to my mind the 737 at Potomac into the river, Potomac at Washington, and you know, those guys. They were in a similar situation. Their snow and ice had affected their engine pressure probes, so they weren't getting enough power out of the engines because those probes were partly clogged with snow and ice, and they had failed to put the probe heating on, which you're going, what the hell? So yeah. That was a similar sort of bit. You can see that they snaggered along at about 50 feet until eventually they dropped out of the sky in a very similar way to this bloke. Just not good. And you only have to read an accident report like that old accident at Potomac into the river before you go, well, that's not sensible. Let's not do that.
Right.
So I do wonder how much attention some pilots pay to things that have happened in the past. It's so much better to learn from old incidences and save yourself.
And interestingly, you know, one of the crew members, maybe both, but for sure one of them on that Potomac incident felt that something wasn't right. It didn't feel like it was accelerating at the normal rate, but they just accepted it instead of. And I don't think at any point that they jammed the thrust levers forward, you know, and I think they say that if they had, that would have helped them, you know, escape this.
Yes, they probably would have got away with it. Yeah, I know.
But they were so worried about, like, you know, like hurting the engines, I guess. You know,
yes,
it's one of those human things where, like, oh, I know that there are limitations to this engine. I can't push the thrust levers up too far because I'm going to burn the engines up. Well, yeah, let's see what happened here. They ended up crashing.
Yeah, I know.
Oh,
very, very sad.
Yes, sad indeed. I hope you don't mind, Liz, but I'd like to skip that item D and go to this one, which I think is quite interesting. A senior official at Pakistan International Airlines, PIA, says that he regrets telling flight attendants to wear undergarments in a now viral internal memo that criticized cabin crew over their choice of clothing that was creating a, quote, poor impression of the airline. The PIA's general manager of flight services, Amir Bashir, now says he regrets his choice of words, which seemingly suggested that flight attendants were regularly going around with no underwear on. Now, Nick Camacho, I see, has joined us, and he's thinking, wow, good timing, huh? Join in progress, and they're talking about flight attendants not wearing underwear. Hello, Nick. How you doing?
Hey, good. How are you guys?
Glad that you could join us.
We're good. Are you commando today, Nick? We're just curious.
He's not going to say.
I'll keep that to myself.
Well, I've already admitted having a skirt
underwear.
on
You guys
today.
can't even tell if I'm wearing pants.
No, true. I mean, you can't tell any of us are wearing pants, and we may not be. Who knows? But as Nick mentioned, and maybe he'll expound upon this a bit during the Getting to Know Us segment. Apparently, Nick is in what's the word I'm looking for? He's wearing an acceptable Virgin Airways uniform. Their new uniform regulations now require everyone to wear skirts, right? No, or they can. They're allowed to. Anyone?
Yes, it's very true. You can now cross-dress in Virgin Atlantic. At least the crew can. So, yeah.
I love that.
But
Remember
you can
that.
wear whatever suits you.
Yes, that's a possible. It's a possible title right there. Pilot in command. Oh, yeah.
I have no idea how I'm going to do a picture about that. But
I know you can figure that out. Anyway, let's get back to this. This riveting story. Yes, General Manager of Flight Services Amir Bashir now says he regrets his choice of words, which seemingly suggested that flight attendants were regularly going around with no underwear on. Despite standing behind the spirit of the memo, Bashir admits that the memo came out with an inappropriate selection of words. I don't think we actually have the memo. I'd like to see it. I'm wondering exactly how inappropriate it was. Let's see. View from the flight deck in our live audience says, my previous company's employee manual stated that the presence or absence of undergarments shall not be obvious. There you go. Yeah, if you're not wearing underwear, just don't make it obvious that you're not wearing underwear. Yeah, don't lift up that skirt, Nick. Okay. I personally feel regretful, and I am fully convinced that the words could have been more civilized and appropriate in this context, instead of words published, which unfortunately are being trolled and twisted towards the defamation of the company. So the whole point was to keep, bad press, away from the company, and instead it seems that it had the opposite effect. Only days prior, Bashir had admonished flight attendants for dressing, quote, casually during layovers and when traveling to and from work. Such dressing leaves a poor impression on the viewer and portrays a negative image of not only the individual, but also of the organization, the original memo continued. He suggested that the flight attendants dress properly by wearing proper undergarments. I don't know what a proper undergarment is, but that's what he wants. And and this is not the first time that he has ruffled some feathers regarding dress requirements or appearance standards. Yeah. In 2019, another of Bashir's memos made headlines when he ordered overweight flight attendants to lose up to 30 pounds in just 6 months or face the threat of being grounded or even dismissed. Later the same year, they ordered flight attendants to stop posting photos of themselves in uniform on social media. The order was made after several flight attendants took photos of worn and damaged aircraft cabins and posted them on their socials. Ooh, that's embarrassing. Okay, so.
Well, I love that. Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? Because an airline wants to keep up opinions on the class of its crew, and I'm not quite sure if you're off duty and wearing what we would term mufti, so you're wearing non-uniform clothes. How the hell are the general public supposed to know that you're a crew member and you're just a member of the general public? And what's more, what say has the airline as to what you dress when you're not on duty? The cheek of this man. There you go.
Very
So
cheeky.
it's backfired on him. Is all I can say.
And that
Quite right.
being cheeky could have something to do with the inappropriate undergarment selection.
Well, there you go. I mean, quite honestly, we're talking Pakistan here, so they have they don't have very liberal views on the ladies' dress anyway in that country. So, I'm a bit surprised about this, but certainly perhaps the cabin crew let their hair down a bit when they go to a country with less.
Which hair are we
concern.
talking about?
Oh, steady the
That might be the
buffs.
problem.
Steady
You
the
need to
buffs.
wear the undergarment.
Exactly.
right.
Yes, we do. Yeah, and
All right.
talking of garments,
Yep.
perhaps now is an appropriate time to mention that Virgin Atlantic have allowed their crews, and it doesn't specify whether it's flight deck, cabin crew, or both, to wear gender appropriate. So they decide which gender they're going to identify with, and then they can wear a uniform appropriate to that gender. So if you're a gentleman or previously perhaps a gentleman who now identifies as a woman, then you would be allowed to wear what used to be the female cabin crew's dress, so a skirt and a blouse, basically. Having said that, it also allows the females to wear trousers or slacks, I don't quite pants as you call them in
we
States.
we usually say pants.
And perhaps a suit, which in the olden days used to be more appropriate for the guys to wear. But they don't mention specifically what the pilots should wear. So
I would imagine flying an Airbus, wearing a skirt, even a long skirt, would be not a problem, right?
No, it wouldn't. You're quite right, because
Now,
there's no big stick between your knees.
Yeah, tell me about it. But the Virgin flies the 787, correct? So
Yes, we do.
that one
So
could be a problem, I guess.
could be a
with,
problem for them.
Yeah.
If they decided to wear a skirt. But there were actually, on social media, I saw a lot of people saying, well, how could you possibly fly an airplane in a skirt? Well, I'm pretty sure that there are plenty of lady pilots around there, and not all of them wear trousers. So I would suggest it's quite practical, perhaps, in some circumstances, to wear a skirt, depending
Just
on
hike it up.
the design.
Just hike it up around your waist, and
Or-
make sure you have
if
an
it's-
appropriate undergarment.
I
There you
don't think
go.
that's the advice we'd like to have for our airline, Jeff.
Okay.
Hiking your skirt up around your waist.
Well, I don't know. I can go. I could see it. Yeah.
Okay, well, how about the guys then, if they hike their skirts
Well,
up?
that's what I'm talking about.
Oh, okay, fair enough. Okay.
Let's see. View from the flight deck says, I may have flown a Cessna 150 in a kilt. Yeah, there you go. That's a guy's skirt,
Well,
right?
those things are a bit drafty, so I think you've been
well-
very brave.
And I'm not sure if this is correct or not, but I've heard that the proper wear of a kilt includes zero garments under the kilt. Is that true?
Well, I heard a famous comment when a lady asked a soldier who was wearing a kilt if there was anything worn under his kilt, and he replied by saying, "No, madam, it's all in perfect working order."
I knew you were going there. Love it. Love it. All right. Well, you know what? Probably best if we moved on to our Getting to Know Us segment. Getting to know us. Getting to hope you like us. Because we love you guys. We do appreciate you watching, listening to our show. And this is the time of the show where we kind of talk about, not kind of, we do talk about what everybody has been up to between episodes. And let's see. Well, Nick, we haven't heard much from you because you just joined us. I'm sorry, Nick Camacho. If you don't mind, I'd be interested to hearing this as well. Why don't you tell us about what have you been up to since the last time you were on?
Yeah. So last time I was on, I think was at the beginning of September. So it's been
It's been that long?
a few weeks.
Wow.
In that time frame, I traveled out to California for work. Spent a couple weeks out there, and then came home. Came home around the 22nd or 23rd, and had to turn around and immediately go to Florida. And as you guys discussed earlier, there was a weather situation in Florida. I was going to the Panhandle area of Florida, but around the time I was leaving, the area I was going was still in the cone of uncertainty. So I was getting on the airline with my boss saying, there's a pretty good chance that I was flying in on Monday. He said, there's a pretty good chance that we'll have to turn around and fly or drive out on Tuesday and then come back on like Thursday or Friday. And so that sounded like a bit of a bummer. Fortunately, we got in, and fortunately for us, not fortunately for the people on the west coast of Florida, but the storm kept kind of tracking east and east and east, and it ended up making landfall south of Tampa. So Florida's kind of the boot shape, and it actually ended up hitting, like halfway down the west coast rather than up in the Panhandle area. So that didn't affect me immediately. However, some of our work was affected because our very large customer that we work for, let's just say they might be a little gun shy from previous hurricane experiences. So they had a lot of hurricane procedures in place, moving a lot of things around. So we did get delayed a little bit, but I still managed to get home last Friday. And then the following day, Saturday, I flew up to Gardner, Kansas with my dad in the Debonair. That was our first trip away from home in the Debonair, so that was good. That's my brother's home airport. And they have a very active vintage aircraft chapter there, which is an EAA kind of subunit for vintage airplanes. And they were hosting a fly-in, kind of a informal fly-in to because they were done with construction on their hangar. They had done a hangar construction project over the summer, and they just finished it up. So we went up there for that. Saw my brother, saw my nephew and my brother's wife. Airplane flew really well, going up and coming back. Unfortunately, on the way up, my request for flight following was denied.
Really?
Much to the chagrin probably of RH and AG. Yep. Actually, they just told me to wait because they were pretty busy. Didn't sound that busy, but they were pretty busy coming out of Wichita. It's just a 1-hour flight. So by the time we got out and away from all the Wichita stuff, we just went ahead and flew on in. VFR with no ATC guidance, which I'm sure is a little terrifying to people like Captain Nick, but we did manage to navigate the airplane all the way to where we were going, and then did get flight following on the way back. And I only mention that because this is the first time that I was able to verify within the whole ATC system. They were seeing my transponder, and the ADSB system was working, and the radios were working, and so it was a good trip.
Yeah, we have a picture right now on the video of you and your dad.
Oh, yep.
In the Debonair. Looks really, really nice.
Yeah, I'm pretty happy with it. And then this summer's just been so crazy. Lots of things happening for me and my family. I have not been able to fly very much. So I flew on Saturday, and then on Sunday I went out and I flew the Luscombe, and then on Monday I was talking to a couple of my friends, and there's some prominent comedians here in the United States that do this thing called Sober October. It's Joe Rogan and Bert Kreischer and I think Tom Segura and a couple other guys. But anyway, a couple of my friends were going to do this thing they called, or this Sober October thing, which is basically, they stop drinking for October and they might try to learn a skill or something. And I thought, what I ought to do is I ought to try to see, now that I've flown the first 2 days of the month, I ought to see if I can fly, how many days in a row through October I can fly, and just kind of make it a priority to do more flying. So I'm up to 6 days, and we'll see how it goes. But it's been a lot of fun, and it's kind of reminded me how proficient in the airplane I used to be compared to where I am now. Because some of the stuff that's starting to come back to me, I think back to like when I was, 10 years ago when I was flying 100 or 150 hours a year, and how good I was in the airplane compared to now. Mm-hmm. I'd say I'm safe now, but I would not say that I'm a exceptionally sharp pilot. So I'm going to try to work to get back to that point.
Well, they say practice makes perfect.
Yep.
And it really is true. The more time you have and the more recency, it makes you a better pilot, better driver, better musician, whatever. Just like that pilot in the news story. Oh, you're talking about the one with 30,500 hours. Okay, well, it doesn't always guarantee, Liz, that it's going to be good. Yeah. Anyway, and I should mention also to thank you, patrons at Patreon. One of the ways to support the show financially, one of the perks is that you get to see occasional or hear occasional crew logs. And Nick Camacho put one out just a few days ago, and it involves your trip with your dad, Hector, up in the Debonair. Excellent. All right. Any big plans in the upcoming week, Nick? Or are you going to kind of just relax a little bit and spend some time with your family?
Yeah, I think get caught up with family and get caught up around the house on things that I have not been able to manage the last month or so.
Yeah. Well, thanks for taking time out today for to come on and be with us on the show. Absolutely. All right. Captain Nick, anything? Have you had any, I don't know, visitors recently or anything going on over there in the southwest of London?
Well, I don't know if I can say really, because I might be stealing Steph's thunder, but she did pop over to the to the United Kingdom to run around London, which is not something everyone does, but a significant number of people were there with her, and I'm going to let her talk about the London Marathon, which she said started off a bit wet, and then by the end of it she was sunburned. So that was great. But Steph and her friend, another doctor, Karen, they both completed the marathon. Steph's time was not a record time for her, but well under 4 hours, so that's a really good job. Anyway, they on the next day they managed to find a car and drive down to my place, and we had a lovely afternoon sitting, chatting over a few beers and a charcuterie. Is that the right word? I never know quite how to pronounce that.
I think that's right.
Of sliced meats and cheeses and nice bread. Mm-hmm. Very pleasant. And then I took him out to a local pub, and there's Steph munching away, trying to get some carbs down her as at our local pub, the Deer's Hut, very nice. So that was very lovely to see Steph again, and her friend Karen, both delightful people, and congratulations to both of you for getting around the marathon without a problem. The only other thing I was going to mention is I was due to give a talk at the Aviation Society, TAS. They shorten their name to TAS, at Manchester. But they sadly they managed to double book their venue, and the people they had booked their venue too. They couldn't cancel that, so they said, "Oh, would you mind giving your talk next year?" So I said, "Yeah, it's not a problem. Don't worry about it." Which was fine actually, because I'd already given one talk up there, so I was having to write a new one, and I was thinking, "Oh, there's a bit of hard work involved in this, so now I can shovel that to one side for a month or
Did
two."
you say, as long as you double my speaking fee?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, I charge so much for these events. In fact, the next one I'm giving, I'm going to be at White Waltham on the 20th of October, but that'll be an interview with a chap who's written a book about the Folland Gnat, which was RAF trainer, jet trainer, when I went through my training, and also flown by the Red Arrows. And this fine chap, Rick Peacock Edwards, RPE, was one of my instructors when I went through Valley as a student on the Gnat. He's written a book about the Gnat, so that's fascinating, where Neville and I are interviewing him on the 20th of October at White Waltham. But not this, we're going to be busy doing filming and stuff, so probably not ideal for a meet-up, but you never know. We might have time for a coffee if someone, happens to be around. And the next event then is the chat I'm giving at Brooklands. I don't know if you, those of you who were part of, I know certainly Liz was. Jeff, you came to it. The PTUK's 300th or 200th?
400th, I think.
400th, was it?
Yeah.
Are you sure they're that old? Yeah.
Yeah, they're catching up to us.
Absolutely, at the Brooklands Aircraft Museum. Well, I'm giving a talk there to the Royal Aircraft Establishment. Royal RAES, Royal Aeronautics...
Aeronautical Society?
Society, that's it. I'm sorry.
That was Liz helped me with that.
Thanks. On the 16th of November, that's the kind of next event I'm giving. But that's all that's on the cards for me for the moment. Indoor bowling is now de rigueur for me, so I'm bowling at my old location, but now on the indoor club next door to the outdoor club, and which is great fun. So I'm still very busy, and I've got a dog shoot coming up. Not where I shoot dogs, I photograph dogs.
That's so mean.
Yeah, exactly. On Monday or Tuesday next week. So, there's still a lot going on. I'm a very busy chap.
You are very busy. Making me tired just hearing about all that stuff. All right. Well, thank you, Nick. Well, Liz, I haven't really been doing a lot other than flying trips. I've been flying a lot of and singing, on the weekends, and I have planned to do a lot of singing this upcoming weekend, because I think one of the musical ensembles, one of the female voices, has just contracted COVID,
So you're taking her place?
Yes, I have. Wear appropriate undergarments that are very, very tight,
yes.
so I can sing up in the soprano range.
Yeah.
No,
Gender
I'm not going
appropriate.
to be. Yeah. So I got a text from my director this morning saying, "Help!" She's panicking because now she's basically playing at 5 masses this weekend, and it looks like I'll be at all 5. So hopefully I'll have a voice left by 6 o'clock on Sunday night, and then off on another trip on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, again with my favorite first officer, Brent. And we just finished a trip this past Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. We were it was a tough trip, let me tell you. One flight on the first day to Jackson, Mississippi, and then a very long layover there. And where did we go? We got some good food there, I think. We went to a place called Martin's and had some nice food. Then the next day it was a little bit tougher. Went back to Atlanta and then up to Chattanooga. It's like a 25-minute flight. And
Wow,
another
they work you so hard.
I know it was like it was fun. We were laughing because we were kind of exhausted after that, thinking that's like almost twice as much flying today. And then yesterday, Wednesday, was just about wiped us out. We flew back from Chattanooga to Atlanta and then went down to Melbourne, Florida, and back. Again, that's about an hour's flight time each way. Yeah, it was tough, Liz. It was tough, and yeah, unfortunately, we don't have too many of those kind of really, really nice trips. Next trip, it's not too bad, but it's like a 3-leg, 2-leg, 3-leg trip. I think we're going to be in Springfield, Missouri, and Chattanooga again on the second night. So, but I did pick up, and the reason why we're recording early today, and again, thank you for those who are here live. We ended up starting a little bit earlier so that I could finish up the recording, get the bag packed, the uniform ready, and out the door, sign in time just before 5 o'clock this afternoon at Atlanta International. I picked up a quick overnight going up to Knoxville, Tennessee and back, and then up to Wichita or over to Wichita. But Nick, I won't be calling you because we get in just before midnight your time. Tonight, and then I think it's like a late afternoon sign in tomorrow afternoon. But anyway, well, I'll be in. Oh yeah, good point, Liz. Liz is suggesting that you take. I don't think I want to go flying tonight, Liz. That she's saying that you could pick me up and go flying tonight. No, I'm going to be beat. But thanks for the suggestion, Liz. Anyway, so we'll be back tomorrow night, and then I'll be here for Saturday and Sunday to do my singing, and then back out again on Monday. So that's about. And editing the show, yes, of course. Hopefully, I'll be able to get knock out a bunch of that tomorrow when I'm at the hotel in Wichita. Hopefully, fingers crossed. All right. That's pretty much it with me. The house is still for sale, and we have had people, every now and then looking at it, but no serious offers yet. So we'll see how that goes. We'll let you know. Cover art for the last show. This was awesome. I mean, you really did you nailed it, Liz says. The pilot or the game of Pilot Life. So it's the board game here in the U.S., so the game of life. Many of those who see this will recognize that game, and very, very clever stuff that he always, he being Captain Nick, our creative artist extraordinaire on staff here. I especially love the way you did the episode number, Nick. At the bottom, because when I first saw it, I was looking over everything, ages 8+, and then it says from 5 to 38 players. And I'm thinking, well, that's weird. That seems like a lot of players on a board game. 38 and then wait a minute, 538. That's the episode number 538. Yeah. Oh man, so many. I love instead of Hasbro, it's APG Bro. That's our game division at APG.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We it cost a lot of money buying that game division.
Yeah, it did.
But we should make it back with this edition of the game of Pilot Life, don't you think?
Yeah. Wow. Any other interesting nuggets that we may have missed? On this?
There's a spin wheel apparently. I know nothing about this game, but it's got a spin wheel. So now you have trip bids, spin to win, and it did say kids have spoken now with careers chosen by kids. So of course now our kids are our FOs, really, aren't they? So FOs have spoken, and yes. I managed to get on those player cards there a few, like APG Podcaster, because it had a microphone on that one, and then Airline Pilot. Because it had a flight bag, and then Airbus Pilot because it had a game console. So I just had fun playing with it. I didn't understand what the game meant. I managed to squeeze an airplane in there and change one of the signposts to an airport signpost, and managed to squeeze the APG logo in the top left corner.
I
and
see
the
that.
price, $299,
Ooh.
which I think is a fair price for a special one-off game version like that. But I just thought it was perfect. Put caps, airline pilots caps on some of the, I don't know what those the little signpost mannequin people.
Yeah.
But
I
other
love
than
that. Adult oversight required. We
yes,
definitely need adult oversight for sure. And then I love the 50% on the money, little play money that.
yes, exactly. That I didn't have to change. That was already there.
Oh, excellent.
There you go. So
Wow,
that was
great.
easy.
Yeah, definitely a classic, Liz, for sure. All right. Excellent. And that means it's time now for us to talk about our wonderful Coffee Fund cadre or Coffee Bar Club by playing the APG Java Jive. Jeff Smith.
Johnny, how much more coffee? No thanks.
I love coffee, love tea. I love the APG community. Coffee and tea and the Java and me. A cup, a cup, a cup, a cup, a cup. I'm getting dizzy watching all the different video things going on there. Anyway, Coffee Fund, as I mentioned, that's your way to support the show financially if you have the resources to do that. And a couple different ways. One is called the Coffee Fund Classic Method, basically a PayPal donation page used mostly, I think, for people who want to give every now and then donations to the show. And we do have recurring contributors as well using that mechanism. But just like to mention one that we received from Mike Palladino. And I believe we have some feedback from him. Hopefully we'll get to that today. So thank you, Mike, for contributing to the show. And by the way, just want to make sure you all know, you don't have to contribute to the show financially to get your feedback read on the show. So just to be clear. But yeah, so they have to contribute to Liz directly, she says. Okay. And the other thing that we have is called Patreon. You can become a patron of the show via Patreon. And we have a couple of folks who joined us as patrons. A new producer, Peter Hatz, and a new executive producer, Sam Dawson. Thank you very much for signing up to be patrons of the show. If you want to do the same, please head over to airlinepilotguy.com/coffee. You'll be glad you did, and we will too. All right, we'll take a momentary break as Nick. Here, I'm going to turn my thing off. I think Nick is probably still taking a physiological break. Nick Camacho, would you like to take a physiological break?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay. And I think I'm okay right now, too. So we'll start with our feedback as soon as as Captain Nick reappears. Oh, look at that. Oh, and he's showing us his hands, that he has washed his hands. Good personal hygiene.
I also now have a plate of hummus. No, it's not hummus.
I was going to say, that's weird looking hummus.
That's halloumi.
Halloumi.
Yeah. You know, that nice goat's cheese.
That looks good. Man, I'm starving. I hadn't had anything to eat yet today.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, lunch seems a long time away.
All right. Let's see. It is time for feedback. I'm trying to find my soundboard. I know it's here somewhere. Here it is. And what are we going to start with? Oh, we're going to start with some feedback with Rick and Liz and I. So here we go. Feedback bumper.
Captain, incoming message.
So, we've heard from a couple of others here about what has been happening, getting to know us. What about you, Rick? What have you been up to?
Oh, man, I've been up to a lot, actually. So it's been a little bit since I've been on the show. But since then, I went down to Miami. I had my my recurrent training. which I have to go to every, at least my airline for now. We do it every 6 months. So you have to go. You do recurrent training every 6 months, and then you go through a check ride, a proficiency check every 6 months. So we do the sim twice a year. Other airlines, and that's going to be it's coming up soon at my outfit as well, where we'll do it every 9 months or so. I believe that's the case in your outfit, right, Jeff? I believe
that is, yeah, that's what we've been doing for several years now.
Yeah.
Every 9 months.
Yeah. So went down to Miami, did my recurrent training, which was it's interesting because it's always good to get to fly the airplane and get to do things and be exposed to scenarios that hopefully you never get to see in real life. Knock on wood here. So did some of that, did some hydraulic failures, some electrical stuff. Did this one was really interesting here. We did a airspeed disagree exercise where it kind of creeps up on you, and you have to be ready to identify it. Now, airspeed disagree is just that. You have the captain has his airspeed indicator. The first officer has his or her airspeed indicator. And then you have your standby instruments with its own airspeed indicator. And then on top of that, you have inertial airspeed, which is airspeed as sensed by your inertial reference system. And so you have that as well. And so so basically what happened to us was, and this was really sneaky by the instructor, and I thought it was great. The way he did it is he didn't tell us that he was going to give us a airspeed unreliable exercise. He just said that there was going to be an instrumentation issue, which is great because back when I was a simulator instructor, which I did for a little while, I was as vague as I could during the briefing and things that I could be vague because I wanted to see the reaction and gauge the reaction time.
That's
and
just
use that
me.
and use that as a teaching tool, right? And so it was basically just that. So everything was working fine. We're going on the descent, approaching Seattle. I forget what approach it was, and all of a sudden, as we keep losing altitude, the airspeed kept what was it? The airspeed kept dropping. Yeah, that's what it was. It kept dropping. And so here I am, the auto throttle's having trouble maintaining speed. So disconnect the auto throttle, trying to give it a little power to, which is normal. It happens sometimes because you're basically your speed control and your path control is based on your winds aloft, which is why it's important to have, up-to-date winds, so that the vertical portion of the automatic flight director system and the flight management computer can provide you an accurate descent path and speed control and all that. And so we're coming down, and then we just couldn't get a hold of the speed. I'm like, what the heck is going on here with the speed? And so I look at my airspeed, I look at the standby, and then I look at the inertial ground speed there, and I'm going, oh. And the first thing the first thing that came to mind was that Idaho Peru accident back in I think it was 97. It was a hull loss of a 757 it took off from Lima, Peru, going down to Santiago, Chile, and then they had just washed the airplane, and they had covered the static ports with metallic tape. And so the captain that did the walk around that evening, he didn't catch it, and so they took off like that. Exactly. They took off like that, and then they weren't able to figure out what was going on, and then sadly everybody lost their life on that one. And so I remember that I was like, so this is not making sense. I've got the thrust levers at idle. I've got a little bit of speed brake out, but the speed keeps going up, and then I'm looking at my ground speed. I'm going, okay, I got this. Yeah. Look at the FOs. The FOs is kind of wobbly as well. I'm like, okay, so you go from there. You pull out the checklist. Obviously, you declare an emergency. You request a block of airspace, so you can work the problem out, work the procedure, and you come back around and you land. And so did that, and that was an eye opener. It was good because it really tells you and shows you that you have things in your airplane that are always going to work. One is your pitch. 2 is your power setting.
Yep.
3 is your inertial ground speed. And 4, and the one that always people forget about, is your radialtimeter. Your radialtimeter is always there. You may not have barometric altimeter because if it's if you have some air data problem, your barometric altimeter might be compromised as well. But your radialtimeter, which is basically like a sonar, as long as you're south of 2,500 feet, it's going to be there. So
yeah.
So work that. Yeah.
Low for that to work.
Well, yeah, it's true.
But you're going to have to land eventually, right? So
exactly right.
You haven't crashed by now.
So and again, the radialtimeter only really works if you're flying over flat terrain, because you come down through 2,500 feet. Hopefully you have. That's why certain approach plates say RA not authorized, because I guess the ground is wavy and it's not an accurate indication of where your altitude is. But anyway, we worked it out, came back around, landed, no problem. So that was nice. Did that. After my trip in Miami, I did my medical. Stopped by, saw the doctor. Turns out I still can see, I still can hear, and I still got my heart going. So that's always nice to hear.
That's good.
And then after that, went over to Cincinnati. Stayed in Cincinnati for a couple of days. It was in the middle of Oktoberfest there. So apparently Cincinnati has the biggest Oktoberfest in the country. So
wow. Lots of Germans.
Lots of Germans up there, absolutely. And so that was nice. Spent a couple of days up there, did the Oktoberfest thing, had a couple of beers. That was great. And then I was supposed to go to Leipzig, and that fell through. So they sent me to Stockton instead. So I spent, same thing. Beautiful place, Stockton. Spent a couple of days in Stockton there doing my mandated rest. It was interesting. I mean, it kind of worked out because usually when you land into Stockton, you land just about anything in California, you always land to the west. And so this one time, winds kind of shifted, and I got to fly a GPS approach to 1-1, I think it was. Yeah, runway 1-1. So we landed to the east, which is nice. You get to kind of practice the procedure of how to fly a GPS approach, which is you don't really get to do that much unless you have to in situations like that. So did that. It's very, I mean, it's a lot of things involved there, because you have to select you have to make sure the autopilot's in the correct mode. You have to, press the correct, the right button in the right sequence, and make sure that you're there to catch the speed and select the correct speed and make sure everything is in where it needs to be. And a lot of times these GPS approaches, I mean, they're very accurate. At least the vertical portion of it is very, very accurate. lateral wise, it's a little.
Yeah. So that's all I have in my airplane is the lateral. We're not allowed to do the LPV stuff. So
you don't?
It's all
okay.
Non-precision. And not only is it non-precision in the vertical, but as you just mentioned, the lateral, I mean, what a piece of junk. I mean, if we ever go into a place and they're talking about like the ILS glide slope out or RNAV, and like seems like most people are saying, well, we'll do the RNAV. I'm thinking, no, tell them we'll do the localizer only, because at least I'll look out the window and I'll see the runway.
And the run will be right there.
Yeah. Otherwise, who knows what you're going to see with this? And it might be, just my airplane. It's an older version of the GPS systems and stuff like that. But I do not like RNAV approaches.
I know. It's interesting because, well, you do have to keep in mind though that sometimes the final approach course may not be the same as a runway course, and as long as you're inside of 15 miles. Because remember, it's 15 miles in the GPS approach for straight-in minimums and 15 degrees for straight-in minimums on GPS and 30 degrees for straight-in minimums on VOR and localizer and all that. Otherwise, outside of that, you have circle land minimums. So sometimes, and I think I noticed this in Stockton, because then the other day I did a visual approach into 1-8 Center in Cincinnati, actually coming back from Stockton to Cincinnati. because the ILS and 1/8 center was out, and so they were flying the visual. And visual's fine, but if I can use something to guide me laterally and vertically, why not do it?
Underline approach.
Yeah, exactly. That final approach course was spot on to the runway, and so I guess it changes. It varies from airport to airport. And I guess I'm gonna have to look here at the iPad, and I don't remember what the final approach course and the runway track itself was. And so, but anyway, did 2 of those, and that was great. And then the day after, I think it was, or day after that, went over to Germany, to Leipzig. First time in 3 years. Back to Germany. That was nice, post COVID and all that. Place is pretty much back to normal. Oktoberfest there as well. So instead of spending my 32 hours of rest in Leipzig, I did it in Stockton. But hey, I still got to spend an afternoon there. Flew with a very nice crew, FO and 2 FOs and myself. So we went out to the town square, had a couple of beers, and just kind of people watched a little bit, and that was that. And then on the way back, flew back to Cincinnati. 10 hours and 45-minute flight time, no, block time. Sorry, 10:45 block, and I remember why I don't fly long haul anymore. Jeez Louise, I tell you.
I flew from Atlanta to Tulsa my last trip. It felt like I was going like transcontinental. It was only like a 1 hour and 37-minute flight. Thinking, wow, when are we ever going to get there? I'm sorry.
I tell you, that really 10 hours, 45 minutes, man. It was. But at least it was nice going across, because so on the way over we got to see the Northern Lights, which was nice. It was my first officer's first time. Well, one of my 2 FOs, his first time seeing the Northern Lights, and it's kind of interesting because if you don't know what you're looking for at first when they first show up, it kind of looks like a city in the distance out in the horizon, and then they get brighter and brighter and brighter. So that was kind of nice. So you got to see him for the first time. And then on the way back, we came back on a random route. We didn't actually fly an oceanic track. We came to the north of the OTS. Because apparently there was a jet between 32 and 42,000 feet just off the coast of Canada there, with a severe turbulence predicted there, and so we had to kind of deal with that. And we were a little not tight on the fuel, but we did we flew with what's called a redispatch flight plan, which we've talked about in the past. Basically, instead of having to take 10% of the fuel for the entire trip, you basically take 10% of the fuel required for your point of redispatch to your destination, which allows you to carry all that extra weight and payload versus having to take the fuel out for a ride. And so we were not tight on the fuel, but you also have to keep in mind that if you get to your point of redispatch and you don't have the fuel required to continue on to your destination, then you have to put down at your original, because you're only so for example, so Leipzig to Cincinnati was a flight, but we were only dispatched to go from Leipzig to New York. If we got to the point of redispatch with enough fuel, then we were redispatched to Cincinnati from that point. If not, we put down in New York and refuel and go on. So that was interesting. Landed no problem, and we go to park the airplane. And the entire place was I had containers and ULDs and tractors and buses and all sorts of stuff all over my place, all over my parking spot. And DHL Ops goes, so can you park it? I'm like, no, I can't, because there's stuff all over the place, and I can't fit the airplane in the area given to me in my parking spot with all the stuff around me. So waited an extra half hour for everything to get cleaned up and taken and towed away and all that. Then we parked, and that was it. And so the following day, no, that afternoon, took a flight from Cincy to Phoenix, and I've been here ever since. Heading back out to staying domestic this time, at least for the first couple of days in my line. I'm flying what's called a secondary line, which is not quite reserve, but it's like because I'm switching bases. I'm going from Cincinnati. I'm going to Houston in November, and so really all I needed was a footprint of days off required for some stuff going on here around the house. So I needed to be home from a certain day to a certain day. So the only really line that had those days available was the line that I was awarded. So by flying a secondary line, I really don't know what I'm doing, where I'm flying. So all I know is that I go.
What I'm doing.
Yeah, all I know is that I go from. I do Phoenix to Portland tomorrow, commercial, and then I fly Portland to Baltimore, Baltimore to Vegas, and then they show me commercialing from Vegas to Cincy, my base, to keep on going from there. But who knows if that's going to hold?
Yeah,
I'm out through the 19th, so that's going to be that. Looking forward to that. So I have to pack my jacket because you never know what they're going to send you. So and it's starting to. Weather's starting to turn, which is great. I love this time of year. It's my favorite time of year. So,
me too.
So yeah, look forward to that.
Well, so nice that you were able to make it for our show this week.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. It's been a while, and I miss you guys. I really.
Oh, we miss you too.
Definitely.
And, the audience misses you, and anytime we can have you on, every now and then, it's great.
We'll take what we can get from you.
Yeah, we can take what we
I
can
love
get.
it. I love it.
All right. Well, thanks, Rick, and we'll hopefully your trip is great, and we can't wait to hear the next time we have you on for what you've been up to. Getting to know us segment again next time.
Take care, guys.
Okay, that was not feedback. I realized I don't know how long into this I realized. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, this is the Getting to Know Us segment that we recorded. So I will, in post, put things in their proper places. And then soon you'll hear when we did discuss one of the feedback items. But before we do that, actually, I meant to play some feedback, or not feedback, a meetup feedback, I guess, sent in by our main man, Micah. And so let's go ahead and do that now, and then we'll get on with the real feedback. So let me find it here. Why am I not able to navigate to Evernote? Okay, here we go. And without further ado, take it away, main man Micah.
Hey, Jeff. Hey everybody, it's your main man Micah, and yes, there's a lot of background noise because I'm at Becky's Diner, a place that I think you've been to, Jeff, but not with me. But Captain Dana's been here with me, and Captain Craig has been here with me, and Terrific Tanya has been here with me, and today Mark Van Ram is here with me. He came in on an ocean liner. No, not an airliner, an ocean liner. And I think this is the longest planned meetup that has ever happened. Mark, welcome to Maine and to Becky's Diner, and it's so great to meet you.
Thank you, Micah. I'm glad to be here. My first time ever in Maine, so I'm looking forward to seeing Portland today, Bar Harbor tomorrow, and then 2 ports in Canada, and then back to New York.
Well, on Maine license plates, it does say vacation land, so you must be on vacation. Tell us a little bit about how long you've been planning this, and when was it that I got that email from you?
I think you got the email in February, maybe. I've been on vacation since I retired 6 years ago, so kind of just different trips. We don't call them vacations anymore, we call them trips. And we planned this one. It's a trip that my wife really wanted to go on because she's in a Facebook crafting group, and there's about 70 of them on the ship. And so she's crafting away, and I'm just tagging along for the ride.
Well, I'm so glad you did. And, we talked a little bit about your history, and all of our listeners have fascinating backgrounds, but yours is particularly interesting to me because you're a shipbuilder and you're a nuclear engineer. And you're wearing a hat, and that's how we got into the conversation. Tell us about the hat that you're wearing and how you ended up getting that particular hat.
So I'm kind of a hat guy. I probably have 50 hats, one from every ship I've worked on, plus a bunch more. The one that I'm wearing today is from the George H.W. Bush CVN 77, and it's a plank owner hat, meaning I'm one of the original crew. I wasn't actually in the Navy then. I was a test engineer, and I helped build the ship.
And she's a gorgeous ship, and she was a birthday present to George H.W. Bush, who was alive when the planks were laid down. And it was so wonderful to hear some of the stories. And tell us a little bit about you, because you cruised on her with your, was it grandson?
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that.
So I did, when he was 8, he's 20 now, 12 years ago, we did a friends and family one-day cruise. We went to, got on early on the ship, well before sunrise, about 5 in the morning. It was all day. They did an air show, launched 3 planes, did a bunch of supersonic passes. They had a rescue helicopter they launched and put a swimmer in the water and recovered him. And it was just a great day. It was a long day for an 8-year-old, but it was something I don't think he'll never forget.
So how did you get from shipbuilding and all the background you have in shipbuilding and nuclear engineering to airplanes and the airline pilot guy?
So I think, well, my dad was in the Navy during the Korean War, and he worked on airplanes. He always took us to Moffett Field to see the Blue Angels when they were in town. I kind of just came from that and being around the San Francisco airport. And I just always liked planes. I stumbled on podcasts. Actually, I think I found out Jeff during the Airplane Geeks podcast. They mentioned him, and I've been listening ever since. Shortly after he switched from the Catholic pilot to the airline pilot guy, back when it was only 30 minutes. And I remember all the controversy when he went to a much longer podcast. Some people liked it and some didn't, but I've gotten used to a 3-hour format, so it's all good.
Yeah, that's how he got me too. I got to blame the Airplane Geeks, and now I waste 3 hours in that chat room every week. And that's where the phone shut down and everything went kerflooey, and we lost the rest of the recording. Tried to pick it up, but somehow or another, things were fouled up. Can you believe it? A technical glitch? I don't know what's going on. Where's Nev when you need him? But anyway, we spent the rest of the afternoon touring a little bit of Portland and South Portland. We drove out to Bug Light and the old Liberty shipyards. We drove over to the airport and did some spotting, got a couple of photos, and what a great time. Mark's a terrific guy. And I really wish that we could have spent more time together. But yes, this meetup was planned since February, and it finally happened today. So thanks for having us here on the Airline Pilot Guy podcast. And this is your main man, Micah. Back to you in the studio, Jeff.
Well, thank you, Micah. I'm on, right? Okay, good. A lot of switches to make sure I have pushed in the right direction. So thank you, main man Micah. He is with us in our live audience as we're recording this on, what day is today? Thursday, October 6th. So thanks for the submission. And it was great that you and Mark Van Ram could get together. And so if you're out there and you do some sort of APG-related meetup, you don't have to have any of us on the APG actually there to do it. So please submit your stuff.
I love that feedback, and the pictures were great. That lighthouse looked like a wedding cake.
It does.
How amazing. Yeah. Perfect. Very nice.
Yeah, and then I guess that one with the ship in the background is the cruise that he was on. He and his wife were on.
Oh, I thought that was just a new hat he was wearing.
Well, that's also. Oh, you mean that big long thing in the water? You thought that was a hat? No, it's not. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So there we have our meetup. Thank you again, Micah, for that, and Mark. And now, I know you've all been waiting for it. It's time for some feedback. For reals.
Captain. Incoming message.
Okay. Let's start off with this from Robert. While we cannot count how many times we have discussed the differences between Boeing and Airbus, I don't recall much about engine manufacturers, so I thought I would ask some questions like, are there some engines that were just not ready for prime time versus some that were the most reliable you can think of? I think these new LEAP, the LEAP engines are made by consortiums of manufacturers these days. But is this a better idea versus the solo manufacturers of the past? Where do engine technologies improve from here? I know there are orders being placed for short-range electric helicopter-like planes, but is that where the future of aviation is really headed? Just curious of any stories you might have to share. Thanks as always for taking my feedback. And that's Robert. Used to be near the Big Chicken, but now he's over on the other side of town in Tucker, Georgia. Yeah. So, first of all, I think many, if not, well, most of the engines being manufactured out there these days are in some kind of a consortium. They're not just doing it on their own anymore. I think that they found that it's the economies of scale and having participate. I guess the financial liability involved with being the sole manufacturer of an engine out there today is probably, probably a lot of risk. So having more than one company,
I'd say that. I mean, at least that would apply to the smaller type airplanes. Your 737 Maxes and your 320 family Neo aircraft, and your what's this new Chinese airliner that was just certified the other day. So yeah, all those. But the big heavy airplanes you're talking about, your 777Xs and your 350, 900s and 1000s and all. I believe those are still. Those still saying, because the 777X, it's the GE90, the new version of the GE90 engine. The 747-8 and then the 78-8-9 and -10. Those are GE NX engines made exclusively by General Electric Aviation. And then on the Airbus side of things, you have your Rolls-Royce Trent variants and others. I'm not up to date with Rolls-Royce production. In fact, I've never flown. I know you have, Jeff. The 1011 had RB211s. But
so I want to say right now, never mind. Just scratch what I said before about the consortiums. Jeff, can you edit that out in post? Yeah, I'll do that.
But I mean, in a way, it's true. In a way, it's true because your LEAP engines and such are consortiums, and the jet that you fly now, the 717, the former MD-95, the engines are a consortium.
Rolls-Royce, BMW, some others, I think, and then even the MD-90 was using the V.
That's the IAE.
Yeah.
V2500
engines, V2500, which again is another consortium.
Yeah, which the A320 did use. That was one of the variants that you had, and the other one was the CFM variant, which also 737s. Your old 700s, 800s, your I guess your NGs CFM equipped there. But as far as and this, I thought this was a great question because it's true. I mean, we talk about Boeing versus Airbus. We know how that goes, and we know who comes out on top.
We don't.
But as far as engines are concerned, I do have a favorite. I've flown out of the big three. I've only flown Pratt & Whitney and General Electric. I've never flown Rolls-Royce. And out of the two, out of GE and Pratt & Whitney, I prefer General Electric. I prefer GE. The airplanes that I've flown with GE engines are, the 76, 200s, 300s, the 74-400s, the 74-8, your Dreamlifter. No, those are Pratt & Whitney, and the 777 at the G90-110, which is the same engine as the G90-115. It's just that it's derated down to 110,000 pounds of thrust. It's the same engine. It's just a software tweak that you do. And the reason why I like GE better, personally, this is just me, is because it's just simpler. It starts a lot quicker. And where this comes in really handy is I remember flying Pratt & Whitney equipped 767s at Lion Airlines in the early 2000s and 2010s. And I remember starting up engines at the old Quito airport, the midsummer day. They're 9,223 feet above mean sea level. And you're trying to start this Pratt & Whitney engine, and it would just take forever. And you have to be really careful because you have a maximum starter duty cycle that you have to keep an eye on, which is 5 minutes. So you can't have the starter going for more than 5 minutes from the moment you engaged in the starter to the moment the starter disengages and the engine can self-sustain its operation. And at high altitude airports, you got really, really close to those 5 minutes. And so compare that to the GE. GE is instantaneous. Now, Pratt & Whitney's do run a lot cooler. Your standard EGT exhaust gas temperature at idle for a Pratt & Whitney engine is about 530 degrees centigrade versus about 7 to 750 degrees for a GE engine.
That's hot.
So, yeah, they Pratt & Whitney does run a little cooler, which is nice. And then there's also different things, and this is I guess ancillary to the type of engine that you have. GE thrust reversers are pneumatic versus hydraulic on the Pratt & Whitney, and I feel like your response time when you request or select thrust reverser on a GE engine is quicker versus Pratt & Whitney. Pratt & Whitney is a hydraulic, and it's interesting because on your standard Pratt & Whitney simulator, if you lose your left or right hydraulic system on a 767, you're going to lose one of the two reversers. Whereas on a 76 GE equipped, as long as you have normal pneumatic pressure across your ducts, you're going to have the thrust reversers independent of hydraulic system operation.
Will you not have like a pneumatic accumulator, like a backup?
No, not on Pratt, not on these on the Pratt & Whitney PW 4000s, which is what the 76s have. You don't have an accumulator. It's strictly hydraulic. So if you lose your 3,000 pounds per square inch of your either right or left hydraulic system, you're out for the count. You don't have a reverse thrust in that engine, which
and also, I think this is true. A Pratt & Whitney, at least all the Pratt & Whitneys that I've ever flown, you set your power based on exhaust pressure ratio, EP.
Exactly, your EPR.
And then I guess on the GE, they use N1 settings, right?
Yeah, and that adds on to the ease of use and the simplicity of the operation on the GE versus Pratt & Whitney. Now we're not being paid by GE to say any of this. It's just my personal, it's what I like better. But it's interesting, Pratt & Whitney, as you said, they use EPR, exhaust pressure ratio, and you basically have two probes. You have a PT2 and a PT7 probe, PT2 in the front, PT7 in the back. And all these probes do really is they compare the air pressure going into the engine versus the air pressure going out the engine, out the back. And the difference in pressure is translated into power output. And so with the engine off, EPR is 1 because the pressure in the front is the same as the pressure in the back. As soon as you start introducing a pressure differential between the front and the back, then you start seeing that EPR number go up. And then obviously if it never gets to 2.0, so you never have twice the amount of air going out the flow of air going out the back that you do in the front. But
physics.
But exactly. But obviously, your normal cruise EPR numbers are around 1.3 to 1.4. Your takeoff thrust EPR targets range from about 1.5 to 1.7 or so. I know that what I set my thrust levers to before we select takeoff thrust is 1.1 EPR, which translates to about 70% N1 on a GE engine. Now N1 is just a percentage of the rotational velocity of the fan, your N1 portion of the turbofan. So you have N1, which is your low pressure compressor in the front, low pressure turbine in the back, and you have your N2, which is your high pressure compressor in the front and high pressure turbine in the back. All you really have is like a what's this instrument in the car, the tachometer, I guess, that senses rotational velocity of the engine.
Yeah, RPMs. Yep.
Basically, so really all it is. It's just an RPM sensor, and then that is routed via several. It's just basically magic, really, and it shows up on your ICA screen there as a percentage of the maximum rotational velocity of the fan. So
yeah, on the airplane that I fly right now, we set 1.2 approximately for basically standing them straight up and letting the engines accelerate and kind of stabilize before you engage the auto throttle system. Then it only goes up to 1.3, 1 to 1.4 usually at the most. You don't really see super high numbers there.
Yeah, I mean, you have to keep in mind that these CF6s and PW4000s, you're talking about 5-to-1 to 6-to-1 bypass ratios.
Yeah,
so
I'm
you
have an engine that has that high bypass.
Right. And for the gas, bypass ratio is the ratio of the air that goes through the core of the engine versus the ratio of the air that goes around it and through the fan. So you have 5 times the amount of air going around the core of the engine versus what goes through it. So that's basically your bypass ratio.
Well, now, we've been talking about all these old technology engines, right? So far. The new kids on the block are the new engine option Neos that we see a lot of Airbuses and 737s using are either the CFM International LEAP engine, which stands for Leading Edge Aviation Propulsion, which is a high bypass turbofan produced by CFM International and a joint venture, which is also a 50-50 joint venture between American GE Aviation and French Safran aircraft engines. And so it's basically the successor of the very, very successful and popular GE CFM 56 and competes with the Pratt & Whitney PW1000G, our modern narrow body aircraft. The one they're talking about there, the Pratt & Whitney version of the new engine technology is what they call their geared turbofan technology, GTF. And it's a high bypass geared turbofan, which allows for a direct mechanical gear linkage between the high spinning compressor turbine sections of the engine to drive the fan portion. And I guess it's supposed to be much more efficient, and they can actually kind of slow down the rotation of the fan section, because I got one of the limitations. I'm not an engine expert, by the way, but one of the limitations I understand of those big fans that are producing most of the thrust in high bypass engines, the limiting factor is the tip speed of the blades I guess
as they reach supersonic. Yeah, right, absolutely. Just like anything in aerodynamics, at least subsonic aerodynamics. You talk about when dealing with air as a compressible fluid, which is not the case in supersonic aerodynamics. You have to contend with the speed of sound and the shock-induced separation that comes as a direct byproduct of that. And so, as you were saying, and that's exactly right, Jeff, but you're basically talking about, in essence, an encased turboprop where you have a reduction gear directly connected, connecting the hot section of the engine to the fan itself, allowing the fan to spin at a way lower velocity, but still being able to provide most of the thrust, because that really is the beauty of turbofan engines. The fact that really the hot section of the engine is there to keep the fan going. You really don't need it once the engine's stabilized and is able to sustain combustion by itself. But that is it. And that's, and you look at these, I remember the first time I saw these, funky looking compressor blades was on the G90 when I flew the 777, where you have the geometry and the chord of the blade itself changes along it, along the span of it, where I guess
it's all twisty.
Yeah, it's all twisty because the pressures and the local speed of sound along the chord of the fan blade differs from place to place, and so you want to just like you would, sweep a wing back to I guess induce more span-wise flow and delay the onset of your critical Mach number. You do the same with a fan blade, because in essence all you really are doing is producing lift, except you are your lift vector is going forward instead of up. It's really all it is. So I just find it fascinating, and they just keep getting simpler and simpler and simpler, and just lighter and lighter, and the materials they use, ceramics and all these really weird exotic materials that they coat the hot sections of the turbine with, and it's just
and that's one of the issues they've been having, especially with the geared turbofan version of these new engines, is that at first, because of all these new alloys and materials and ceramics and all kinds of stuff, that they had to be very careful about how quickly they warmed up, or they came to operating temperature, and they arrived at operating temperatures at different times. And that's no good. The thing was starting to wobble and bend, and they had to be very careful.
It's funny you say that, because when I started flying the 74-8 with the new variant of the GENX engine, we actually had a procedure called the bowed rotor procedure, where you had to start the engines in a certain sequence, and you had to be very mindful. Well, all you really did is monitor, because the 74-8 has very advanced, not FADEX, but EECs, electronic engine controls, and all you really do is you just select the start valve on the top there, and then immediately after put the fuel control switch to the run position, and then the EEC takes care of everything. But you have to be very careful and look at the temperatures, because if anything went outside of parameters, if the EEC didn't shut down the start automatically, you had to do it. And I can't remember off the top of my head what the procedure itself was, or what it was that we were looking for, but it had to do with if you shut the engine down and you were going to restart it inside of, I think it was 2 hours or 2.5 hours, you had to be really careful, because you had to make sure that the EEC would actually motor the engine longer than it otherwise would, for the rotor to basically straighten itself out before the engine started, because otherwise it would shake itself apart.
Yeah,
because of that. So
and so that was one of the problems the operators were having with these early versions of these engines, especially what used to be the C series, and now the Airbus A220 was using the geared turbofan, and I mean, engine start cycle was like taking forever. You talked about start cycle up there in Quito. I mean, that would have been a very quick engine start. It was like I forgot, like 7 to 10 minutes or something. I don't know, like super long start times. And some of these companies, their schedule was based on really quick turnarounds, and they were, I think, pushing it, and they were having a lot of engine failures. I'm not saying it was operator error, but I'm thinking, it wasn't quite ready for prime time when they first came out, and I think they've kind of done some software changes, and they've also changed some of the coatings, I believe, on some of the engine parts.
It was so the way they took care of that on the GNX with the 74-8 was, it was a software patch to the EEC itself. Starter was still pneumatic, because we still used an APU, one hell of an APU, because we could start 2 at a time on the Dash 8, and the 777, the G90s -110s that we had, you could start them both at the same time, but by SOP we started one by one. Wow. Now on the 787, if I remember correctly, you no longer have a pneumatic starter, so you no longer have to contend with starter duty cycle, because the starter on at least the GENXs that I remember was the generator. So the generator doubled as a starter. So you basically had, once the engines were started and the buses came online, the IDGs basically were just that, integrated drive generators providing the electrical power to different buses. But during the engine start, the IDG itself was the starter. So starter duty cycle wasn't really an issue there.
So, a lot of, we could talk like a whole 2 or 3 hour show.
Oh yeah.
But we don't want to do that because we have other news items to cover and feedback items. But Robert did ask, okay, now some of the newest engine technologies, not, the traditional fossil fuel burning engine technology, but these electric engines seem to be like the newest, latest thing.
The thing of the future.
It seems like that they are much, much simpler types of engines. It's just, I guess the problem that we're having now is the energy density required to use these electrically powered fans to power large engine, jets, transports, that kind of thing. But I think that as time goes on, we will probably start seeing these kind of things. But I guess my question is, are we going to be phasing out all these, GENXs and GE90s and, Pratt & Whitney geared turbofans? Are they all going to be, in the scrap heap in 10, 20, 30 years, or are we always going to have them around? What's your feeling about that?
I think you know what? I don't. Watch me be wrong, which I am all the time. But how do you produce? Look at a GE 90-115. You're talking about 115,000 pounds of thrust.
Amazing.
Downrated from a all-time maximum, I think it was, of 128,000 pounds of thrust. That's just, how do you do that with a battery? Not only that, but I get it that the simplicity of an electric engine is just that. It's very simple, very straightforward. But then you think about it, so is a turbofan engine, because as I said earlier, it's you get the turbine going to the right speed to draw enough air across the compressor, and once the correct RPM is going, you introduce a little bit of fuel and a flame, and then it just feeds itself. It's just as simple as it is.
Well, yeah,
it's
look at this.
Simple as it goes.
I mean, how simple could it be?
It really is. I mean, you look at it from front to back. You have your four stages of combustion there. You have your compression, your intake, compression, your combustion, and your exhaust at the back there. And so it's just from I don't know how you make it any simpler than that. But then again, I mean, I'm talking from about technology that's been there since the days of Frank Whittle, back in the 30s and 40s, and so this is time tested and tried and proven to work, flawlessly for many generations. So, what I wonder is, how are electric engines going to be certified to fly ETOPS, for example? How do you do that?
Yeah.
So that's so in that regard, I think, if you look at it from that point of view, through that lens, there, it's going to take a little longer for the operational, I guess. For the track record to establish itself, for it to be trustworthy enough for these governing agencies to grant engine manufacturers like these the authorization that your GEs and Pratt & Whitneys and Rolls-Royce have had for many years. Remember, ETOP's only been around for it's been what, 30 years, maybe 30, 35 years. 767 was what? Yeah, 767 came out in 81 because I was born in 81. So we've only been flying on 2 engines across the Atlantic for a little under 30 years, maybe. And so, how do you do that on electric? I don't know. But
Well,
I mean, that is the way of the future.
I was looking at one of these videos of one of the eVTOL companies using electric technology. I believe I think it's a Swiss company or a German company, Lilium. They have a interesting canard styled, very small eVTOL, VTOL. That has 36 electric engines on it.
36 electric engines.
36.
Wow.
So I guess maybe, like having a whole bunch of these lightweight electric propulsion units will help to, ensure its reliability, right? So if
Yeah,
one or two stops,
but then again, it's not only propulsion units, because I think that to me the propulsion units itself is just it's the simple part of the equation. To me, is the battery pack to it. You have to contend with thermal runaway and on fires. And remember the 787 was parked for
exactly
the first year and a half, 2 years after it came out because of battery problems. And so
grounded it for quite a while before.
And so how do you deal with a complex certification process with that kind of variable? And so I think that from that point of view, I don't think we're going to see your run of the mill turbofan engines go the way of the Dodo for at least another generation. Because I just don't think the technology is there yet. I will get there, but it's not there yet.
Well, I think we're going to find out in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years here. Let's see. It'll be interesting to see. I hope that they'll be able to figure it all out.
Look, I have 24 years to go. If they keep it at 65, and I don't think I'll fly an electric airplane in my career.
I doubt it. Yeah,
It certainly sparked a lot of interest.
Oh, absolutely.
Bam.
Wow, bam.
Oh yeah, I like that.
I love it. All right.
Thanks, Robert.
Yeah, that was great.
Thank you, Robert. Great question. Hope we answered all of your questions.
Wow, that was quite a discussion, actually.
Yes, it was. It didn't seem like it took that long when we were recording it the other night.
You're having too much fun.
Yeah, I guess. Oh, Liz is asking about the picture of the new. There was some discussion.
This,
of
course, is the ultimate in the next generation of jet engine. It will have no moving parts whatsoever.
Okay.
So this is Dyson's proposed jet engine. I believe it's going to be, now that Rolls-Royce has pulled out of the Boom project, it's going to take over. So, I think this is the future of jet engines, quite honestly, the Dyson. It'll be brilliant. I mean, it's very quiet as well. You can barely hear it.
Well, and also you can tell in the picture here that the man behind the engine's also drying his hands.
Yeah,
apparently. So.
I was going to say they must have had to make some sort of ping pong ball to demonstrate that jet engine compared to those little ones they used to.
Yeah, I think the operational ones will have little white streamers coming out of the back, so you can see when it's running.
Yeah. And this is possibly a candidate for the supersonic, the Boom supersonic jet.
Absolutely. I think you just squirt a bit of petrol in the middle and off it goes.
There you go.
Yeah. Way to go.
All right.
Now, don't ask me what the next generation will be. I mean, I think they're reaching the edges of current materials and technology. And what's more, if they try and waste too much time trying to get more efficiencies out of the current engines, they're going to lose the race on R&D on what will replace them. And, Rick may never fly an airplane that isn't conventionally powered, but it's going to run out eventually, and someone's going to have to come up with an idea. Otherwise, I'm hoping by then we'll have Star Trek technology and we'll have transporter pads everywhere, so we can just
we don't need to
we can just be transported from country to country, not flown.
Very true.
Okay, why can't we have rocket engines? I mean, what have they got? Mainly liquid oxygen. What else?
It depends on the particular technology, but I think most of them use, liquid oxygen,
peroxide or something,
hydrogen. I don't know.
I mean, if you can get a Saturn V to go powering into outer space, surely you could have a rocket engine that would work at a lower power and just push you across the Atlantic.
I think that in the past, I think the problem has been being able to reuse the rocket engines without major overhauls. But I think that Elon Musk and the SpaceX endeavor and other modern rocket builders out there, rocket engine builders out there, are showing now that these engines can be used much like modern jet airliner engines can.
Yeah, I guess you'll need pretty big fuel tanks. That's the only thing.
That's the problem. Yeah, the volume of fuel.
Yeah, and infrastructure, right, to move new materials.
Yeah, but I mean, we had to build up our current infrastructure to be as efficient as it is. I mean, you got to start small, and hopefully, things will improve as more of these things are built and used. Whatever you decide to use, whether it just be hydrogen power or fuel cells or whatever.
Yeah.
Interesting.
All right. Well, how about, we haven't had any audio feedback in a while. Just kidding. But this is special. Now we have a couple
Jan the Man.
Yes, Jan the Man Sears. He sent us in some audio feedback. And by the way, not sure we're going to be able to get to it today, but Mike sent us some audio feedback of a tour of the radar control and also the Philadelphia air traffic control tower at the Philadelphia airport. And we're gonna have to put that one off, I believe, for the next show. So, Mike, if you're listening, just hang in there. We do appreciate you recording it, but we're gonna wait, and everybody else's as well. Yes, thanks, Liz. But I think let's play Jan's audio feedback, and then perhaps think about wrapping up today's show. Make it a short show. So. Jan wrote in, "Hi all, wanted to give you the final update on my journey to become an airline pilot. It's been one of the most difficult adventures, but man, is it worth the stress and challenge. I hope these audio recordings inspire anyone to take a leap of faith and follow their heart. Please share my email with the audience. Thank you all for all you do for the aviation community. Warm regards, Jan the Man Sears, First Officer." Let's have a listen here.
And good morning, APG crew, Captain Jeff, Captain Nick, Steph, Liz, and the rest of the great people on the show and that listen to the show. Jan the Man here with an update on my career changes. So last we left, I believe I was in Paris, France, doing simulator training that the airline had sent me over there to do. I passed that and ended up back in Denver to do what's called LOFT, which is your line-oriented flight training. And that went very well after LOFT. And what LOFT is really is just regular flying. So basically taking a plane from the gate to a destination, turning that plane around and coming back to generally the same destination. So a turn, as we call it in the airline industry, and how all those things function along the way. And that went really well. That followed by my LOE, which is your line-oriented experience, or basically your ATP check ride and your type rating. which for me was in the ERJ 175, and I passed that as well. So some of the hardest things I've ever done in my life, being 54 years old and having done many things, some of them more difficult than others, but this one was hard for sure. Being away from home, and the amount of energy and time and study and prep that went into it was top of my list in my 54 years on the planet. So, but that being said, I am 54 and I got it done. So that means that other people too can get it done. And I'm hoping this story just inspires folks to get out there and get it done. So, so what happens now? So I was assigned to San Francisco as my base, which is great because I live in the Bay Area. I have about a 50-minute commute to SFO without traffic and about 2 to 3 hours with traffic. So I began IOE, which is initial operating experience, where you fly with a line check airman for non-specific amount of hours. It's mainly how they feel, how comfortable you are with the aircraft. And so I got to do some flying out of Salt Lake, Missoula, Montana, and Spokane, and Portland, and Seattle, and SFO, and LAX, and San Diego. All of those, most of which you are pilot flying because they really want to see your flying skills. You do some pilot monitoring because that's obviously a skill we have to have as well. But after completing roughly 40 hours in the jet, I was signed off and did my line check and passed the line check. So where am I now? You know, it's 5:53 in the morning, and I'm parked off the side of the freeway in between my house and SFO, because on a weekday, if there's one crash, that 50-minute commute turns into 2 hours. So I'm halfway. I'm on what's called reserve. I'm on the R1 slot, which is 0300 to 1500. And that basically I'm waiting for the call. If someone calls out sick or a crew member doesn't make it in from a commuter flight, I would be the fill-in on that leg. And reserve can last, at least for the airline that I work for, anywhere from a month to 6 months. Just depends on the volume of folks we have going on. So, yeah, so here I am, living the dream, LOL. So, but I'm really happy I made it this far. I had my last day with my real job on paper last Friday. So I'm officially retired from my previous job with the Highway Patrol, and that was almost 23 years there, so that was awesome to wrap that up. And now moving into a whole nother world. So a couple things I'll mention to you that I'm learning as I have gone along. The overnights were fun on IOE, and I look forward to more of those, especially the ones where you start early and you get in early, so you've got some time to trip around. Missoula, Montana was fun. Lots of hiking and running for the 2 overnights that we had back-to-back there. Food. I'm still learning the food thing. I have a cooler. Things start off pretty cold in the beginning and get kind of luke cold toward the end. Hoping that they don't get warm, but utilizing the hotel's actual freezer down in the lobby, like behind the scenes, versus using the not so great freezer in the room has been kind of a game changer for keeping the ice packs cold. So on a 4-day trip, things stay chilly. And then just figuring out what kind of food to bring. So that's been kind of there's a science to it, and I'm sorting that out. I overpacked, surprisingly. I remember my IOE captain reaching for my luggage, and he said, "Good Lord, man, what do you got in here?" And so that's also a science. How many pairs of shirts and socks and underwear, and I always plan for a week, 7 days, and I think I've kind of overdone it. So kind of paring that stuff down to get the bag down to a manageable weight has been kind of a challenge, but it's all part of the program. So let's see. Other than that, I wanted to mention the struggles that I had and the triumphs during training, that all led to this very end point. There were many times when I wanted to throw in the towel. I'm 54. I could retire. I don't have to do this job. And it was difficult and challenging, but that's really what kept me going, to be honest, is the challenge of the job and the challenge of learning a new aircraft, coming from a piston single and going straight into a multi-engine jet was, pretty amazing. My IOE captain, complimented me on my flying skills, my hand flying skills, because that's all I did for 5,200 hours with the highway patrol. And he said, every time I'd give myself a hard time, he says, "Look, man, you got 30 hours in this jet. Don't give yourself a bad time. You're learning." And so that was nice for him to say that, and kept my perspective on what it was that I was trying to accomplish. So it was nice to have that kind of instruction. I really think that line check airmen are in a mentorship position. They not only want to make sure that you're a safe pilot, but they also have the ability to teach you. And that's a very important role, and I'm glad the airline is very picky about who they have as their line check airman, because it's kind of a make or break scenario for a lot of folks. So, other than that, don't ever let your age be a factor in choosing your dreams. Obviously this profession has a certain time window that you can operate in. Me coming in at 54 gives me a solid 10 years in the airline industry, which, for most would be, a pretty solid, short career. So, I'd say, go for it as long as you have family support, which is absolutely positively necessary. And, you have the financial ability to do it, because living off of training pay would be very challenging. And I knew a number of friends in class that struggled often with that. So, but with those things, time, money, and motivation is all you really need to get it done with the family support. So I suggest, if it's something you're considering, definitely go for it. So it's been, obviously a roll of the dice to a certain extent. And I had one line check airman tell me that guys my age or gals my age, about 35% of them make it through training. That's just his own internal meter. There's no real, he doesn't have any accurate numbers, but just from his experience, mainly because of having been out of the educational realm for so long, generally it can be a struggle. But as long as you are doing the work, having good study routines, good study habits. I used everything from flashcards to Quizlet to getting together with group sessions to recording things, listening to it while I was exercising. You figure out a way that works so that you can retain the information, because there is a ton of information to retain, obviously, but the real learning comes flying the line. The airline gets you to a safe point, and then the line flying, you really start to hone your craft. And I'm just in the beginning stages of that. I'm in the steep climb of the learning curve. So, and I recognize that, and not hard on myself. I'm just soaking it up like a sponge. So I hope this pod, my short little voice memos have been a motivation for folks to maybe step out of their comfort zone and do something that they've always wanted to do, but they thought maybe was not possible due to the fact that it seemed unsurmountable. But if I can do it, anybody can do it. So get out there, get your hours. The 1,500 hour rule is still in play, as you were talking about on the previous podcast. So it is. It's a struggle to get that time, but you know what? It's one step at a time, and I never looked any further than where I was. The last thing being my line check and IOE. I wasn't thinking about what great trips I'm going to get to go on. It's just just one thing at a time. It's a process, so keep trusting that process. And like I said before, I know Liz has my email, but if any of you have questions about the process, I'd be happy to share that information with y'all. So here's to blue skies and tailwinds, and getting a different view from having been flying around at 5,500 feet for most of my career. Now I'm up at 3,500 feet, so the view is quite different from that side of the cockpit. So take care, y'all, and any questions, please reach out. And thanks, you guys, for everything that you do. Really appreciate you sharing my journey with everyone. So take care and have a wonderful day.
All right. Thank you, Jan, for taking the time to record that very detailed wrap up of your latter part of your training and your IOE and some tips that you picked up and advice. Absolutely.
Some really nice stuff. And, it must be nice living in such a warm place where you need one of those cycling fans keeping you cool while you give your feedback. No, seriously. Great to hear about your story. And, it was lovely to have known you in your previous life, and looking forward to finding out more about how you get on. It's quite a jump that you've made, so congratulations for doing so well.
Yeah, I guess the theme right there is it's not impossible, but it's very difficult to teach an old dog new tricks. And it really is. I know, isn't it true, Nick? I mean, the older we get, when we go through a new training regime and learn a whole new airplane is like, what?
Well, particularly when later in life the motivation isn't quite as strong.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. All right. Well, what do you guys think about perhaps wrapping up this show? And
I don't know. I was dying to see that BOAC airline.
Were you?
Film, yeah.
Well, I could play that if you want, but we were only going to play just a little snippet of it.
That's okay. That's all I need.
Okay. Well, then I think he's being serious. So, okay. Let's see. That's number 5. Alan sent this in. 1970s BOAC Airlines promotional film, Airline Pilot.
You know what BOAC stands for?
British Overseas Airways
Better
Corporation.
On a camel.
What is it?
Better on a camel.
Better on a camel. Okay. What's better on a camel?
Traveling.
Oh, okay. Well, let's take a little glance.
That's like, what does Lufthansa stand for?
Don't know.
Let us F the hostess and not tell anybody.
Oh no! let's play this video quickly here before he says anything else.
Us F all the hostess and not tell anyone.
First officer on the left.
First officer on the left.
Pilot behind.
Ratcliffe, do you know him?
Well, that's because he's only got 2 stripes. Oh my God! Here comes Scroggins.
No, I haven't. I didn't know. He's going to be the engineer. Steve, is it? Yeah.
Scroggins has got 1 stripe. You can barely see it.
Haven't seen you for a while. Engine officer class 1.
Uh-oh. Here comes grey-haired Lancaster pilot.
No second officer, Ratcliffe.
How do you do?
Hello, Scroggins. Sit in the back and shut up.
Yes,
How did you get on this film?
That's right, yes.
No, I haven't.
It should
Yes.
be warmer anyway.
Who's
The
done
flight
all the
goes
work?
through to Delhi, but you leave it at Bahrain. Spend a night there, then on to Bombay in another aircraft.
Right. Scroggins, get my suitcase.
They're walking out the door of the flight planning room.
Oh,
and
I'm
the
just gonna
captain
let that
slams it in
door
all
bang
their
you in the
faces.
face.
The captain checks all the data which has been prepared for him
Yes.
and makes his final
Don't touch my hat, Scroggins.
What's the weather like?
What's the weather like?
Fine, Bahrain.
Shut up.
Yes.
Only I have to know.
Beirut's all right.
You want
He
me
checks
to
the
tell you
weather
it's here?
destination. Weather en route,
It all looks fairly straightforward, doesn't it?
Uh-huh.
wind speeds and directions, visibility, runway conditions. He looks at the all-up weight.
Oh, be quiet. You're
and
just a
decides
woman.
how much fuel to take.
Yes, we take
Oh, my.
57,000 load sheet or 57,000 load sheet.
Piece by piece, you build up a complete mental picture of the journey before you go out to the aircraft.
I think we'll get out to the airplane. I'll take Steve out and start the checks going. Yes,
Yes, I don't want to do the walk around.
50 minutes to take off.
Looks a little...
Oh, it's a
Less than
VC-10.
an
Icy.
hour before this aircraft, with 112 passengers, will be on its way to India. When you're a
Big
first
airplane
officer
like that.
and you've been
4
flying for
damned
more than
engines,
15 years,
112 passengers.
today's flight probably won't seem much different from dozens of others. But when you're just going out for the first time as the third pilot of a VC-10, then it is different. It's something you've spent almost 2 years working up to.
Okay.
Yeah,
So, hey,
that's
how's
quite
that for a
enough, thank you.
tease?
Bloody marvellous.
Thank you, Alan, for pointing that out to us. That was from Periscope Films, I think. Hopefully, they won't sue us for playing a little excerpt there. But anyway, we just wanted to send a whole bunch of audience their way to watch it. Actually, they have a whole bunch of really, really good old films. I was just watching one, in fact, a couple of days ago, the Pan Am Clippers, and flying from San Francisco to Hawaii and Guam and beyond. Pretty neat. I think I would have loved flying the flying boats back in those days.
Oh, God, yes. That would have been fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Particularly since once you got off, the company couldn't really stop you from doing anything. You could do whatever you damn like because no one had a clue what you were getting up to.
Yeah. You know what I loved about the video with the Pan Am Clipper? They were boarding a Boeing 314, right? 314?
Yeah, I think so.
A flying boat. And
it was a big Boeing.
So this thing is in the water. It's at the dock, and all the engines are running. And then all of a sudden, the crew kind of marches out, in 2 by 2 by 2 by 2 and I'm thinking, wow, somebody is already out there. I guess the engineers already took care of starting everything up and checking everything out before the crew even shows up to the airplane. I'm thinking that's
Get it nice and warm. Yeah.
Yeah, and then after that, then you see all the passengers coming in, and they're all like grabbing onto their hats to keep them from flying off. Anyway, pretty.
The thought of flying those aircraft around Africa. Can you imagine it going up and down the coast and into the big lakes, over the Great Plains, and seeing all the wildlife? Because you're only a few thousand feet. It was like low flying the whole way.
Yeah, I think between
fantastic.
Between San Francisco and Hawaii, I think it was like 8,000 feet. Is what they were cruising at. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Anyway, those were the days. Well, thank you again, Alan, for sending us that little link to the film about BOAC. And if you want to watch the rest of it, it'll be in the show notes. That puts us at the wrap-up point for episode 539. And we always like to tell you or point you to our website, which is airlinepilotguide.com, where you'll find all kinds of stuff regarding the crew and the community calendar, and merchandise, and expanded information about the plane tales, and so much more. So please check that out. And then we're also on social media, or what I like to call incorrectly and badly social meds.
So if you're going to send us in any feedback via email, then feedback@airlinepilotguide.com. And also if you want to send anything to us individually, you can just replace feedback with our names, Nick or Jeff or Liz or whatever. So that's good for
whatever works
email.
as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. What does Nick get? Because
I was going to say, any angry feedback you have for me, definitely send it to Nick at airlinepilotguide.com.
Yes. There is also I'm offended at.
No, mine is just Camacho at
okay, Camacho.
Guy.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you're a Facebooker, then look for Airline Pilot Guy, all one word, and just type that into the search engine. If you're a Twatterer, then at APG Crew, which is almost as good as if you're an Instagrammer, which is without the at, just APG Crew. Not much goes on Instagram. Steph put some stuff there, and I put the artwork in there, but we're not great big Instagrammers.
No, not a huge presence there for us, but I mean, you only have so many hours in a day, right?
Yeah, exactly right. There's a few Christmas presents, but
yeah. All right, and let's see if Hillel can
Fire in the hole.
Whoa!
God.
Well, maybe he's
Not
a little bit busy.
I thought you had the house all cleaned up for viewings, and now he's making a mess of it.
I'm going to have to spend some time before I head out the door.
Scrubbing the loo again.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you know what? I fortunately, since he's a little bit busy, I'm going to go ahead and play this recorded bit from Hillel regarding Slack.
APG listeners, please join us on our Slack team. Slack is a communication, coordination, and sharing platform that works on your mobile, laptop, or browser. On Slack, we share news and ideas, we suggest episode and plain tales topics, we plan events and meetups. To get into the Slack team, please email me at slack@airlinepilotguy.com. That's SLACK, Sierra Lima Alpha Charlie Kilo @airlinepilotguy.com, or send me a tweet with your preferred email address to @Hillel, and I'll send you an invitation. That's Hillel, spelled Hotel India 11 Echo 1, and see you in Slack.
Jeff, this is my private time.
I know. That's why we didn't bother you, okay? All right. Let's see. We'd also like to a big shout out to Liz for all the hard work that she does each and every show and in between, and it's amazing.
This is great. I have a whole new show ready because we didn't cover much. I'm happy.
That's why you're encouraging me to stop the show.
No, I just don't want you to be late.
Yeah, thanks.
I've just got to finish the plain tale.
All right. Very good. And with that, we're hoping that you'll be with us again the next time we record, whenever that's going to be, sometime next week, I'm assuming. And thanks for telling everybody, all the kids, about the show and your reviews on iTunes or wherever reviews are done out there. We do appreciate that as well. And until next time, wishing you clear skies, unlimited visibility, and tailwinds. Take care, and God bless.
Bye, everybody.
See you next time.
Ta-ta.
Ta-ta for now.
Ta-ta.
TTFN.
Love it. All right. Well, I'm hoping that some of those, especially those out in like the Middle East and Europe and the UK, enjoyed having a little bit earlier recording time this week.
Yes,
and,
Neil, I definitely have Pilot in Commando as a possible title.
Excellent.
Yeah,
I also have the Cone of Uncertainty, which you could go anywhere with that, but like APG and the Cone of Uncertainty. So you could go
be
with
like
that.
a APG dog with one of those.
Could we have a
shame.
raccoon of uncertainty?
I guess. I'm not sure where you're going.
Raccoon. I'll have a picture of a rack.
I like Pilot and Commando. I'm gonna have I just need to find a Scotsman.
Wasn't there a picture
of
Okay.
Rick?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, I do have a picture of Rick, but it's not a very good one. It's not up to show title quality, I'm afraid. But I could probably glue his face on a big airy Scotsman.
I like it. with a big watch on his arm.
Oh yeah,
Or a big watch
have
as
a
his
big
sporran.
watch.
As his sporran, he could have a big watch. You know the sporran.
Big watch on his sporran.
Exactly.
Okay.
On his what?
You know the thing they wear around their waist. It's kind of
I thought you were talking about a body part. I'm sorry.
No, their purse kind of thing.
No, it's just that bit's going to be lifted up to show everything's in working order. Surely,
Gubby, no, thank you, but I appreciate the offer. I'm not sure anybody would be ready for that.
No.
Neil, Discord server. I don't know anything about. I know I've heard of Discord servers, and I've been on some of them, but I don't know all the technical stuff regarding that. If you'd like to volunteer to help us set something like that up, I'd be more than happy
We
to
have enough
entertain
Discord
the idea.
around here.
Yeah, no kidding. But yeah, I that's the kind of the new thing out there for continuous chat, new thing. So yeah, contact us, and we maybe have a little meeting and figure out how to do that. But I think you have to have your own server, though, right? Or do you? I guess maybe there are services out there where you pay for a server. I don't know. See, I don't really know that much about it.
We don't know. We basically don't know. You've got the oldies here. I mean, Nick Camacho may know because he's young and with it.
Discord?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I don't know anything about it other than I know my friends use it when they're playing video games. It's like a
messaging thing back and kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's all.
We don't need another platform, do we? Anyway, I guess.
No, I mean, if we did do a Discord thing, I might be, but I think, yeah. We'll discuss.
We'll think about it
off air
and dismiss it.
Wow.
Sorry, did I say that out loud?
Neil, how do you feel now, mate?
Sorry, Neil. I'm not squashing your idea. Promise.
And you know what? She's putting a very, very positive presentation of herself while she's on air. Can you believe what she's like as soon as we hit that button that says end broadcast?
Exactly.
Oh my God.
You know, you're just getting the blunt end of her tongue. Wait,
I'm getting the social media.
This is sweet
on our own.
This is sweet, Liz.
Okay, time to end the broadcast now.
Yeah.
I don't want
Stop
you to
now.
be late.
Okay.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
For joining us.
We'll see you next time.
All the best.
Bye-bye.
Bye.